Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 388. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. Don't call me Juicy, it's just me over here doing the Batusi. So says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of You Know.
How's it going, eh?
Jim, on this episode, we are going Batman. And it's actually a slight little change from our original plan. We are still going to do Wonder Woman and Green Arrow. We moved them the next week because as we started fleshing out this episode, our original plan was to do Batman and Aquaman and Batman. But there's been a creative change over at Detective Comics, and Batman Eternal came out. So it made sense to do like a contained Batman episode talking about those four titles. And then next week, we're going to be leading off with Wonder Woman and Green Arrow and other titles. But that was the reason for the change. It just felt right to do this. So hope you guys enjoy this episode. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network, the DC Infinite Podcast Partnership, and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Once again, sponsoring this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, I'm a big fan of unique hardcover editions, and they've got the Dave Gibbons Watchmen Artifact Edition hardcover. Watchmen has been called the greatest graphic novel of all time. Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons created a story and graphic narrative unlike anything that preceded it, and revitalized the entire art form that followed. It is the one book that nearly all comics readers know inside and out, or so you thought. Now, with the full assistance and cooperation of Dave Gibbons comes the Dave Gibbons Watchmen Artifact Edition, crammed full of high-resolution scans shot directly from Gibbons' original art. Covers, interiors, advertisement, portfolio pieces, color guides. This is the ultimate collection of the ultimate graphic novel. This is a $93.75 book, but it is something for... I'm a big fan of comic history, the process. I'm not an artist. I'm not a writer. So when I get the opportunity to see the process that some of these things have gone through and things that I've never seen before, especially when it's a work like Watchmen that I've loved so much, I just thought this was a good one to shout out because it's something that you might otherwise miss. It's one of the things I love about DCBService.com is browsing and making like strategic decisions like this is what my budget is, and I always like to get like a special hardcover or something, quarterly, and this one looks like really cool for me, one of these big artifact editions. I just hope they do more of these. I think it's just a neat product that they're offering. But that's DCBService.com. Remember, they're a Comixology digital partner. Earn 5% of your purchases towards your DCB service order by linking those accounts. Over at InStockTrades.com, another special one, and I'll talk about it a little bit more on the closing ad. It's Day Tripper by Fabio Moon and Gabriel Ba. It's a 272-page count book, $34.99 regularly, 50% off, only $17.49. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plot lines, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on the show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
What was that?
I tried to do the Batman theme and I messed it up.
Oh, all right. I can kind of see it now. Okay, because of the whole Batusi thing from earlier. All right. I can kind of see what you were going for there. I needed the explanation, but all right.
I'm starting to lose my voice.
It's like we've been gabbing for hours or something.
I know.
Let's talk some comics.
Spinning with great speed, the Flash creates a protective vacuum around himself.
Jim, there have been some big announcements about some books that I know you and I are alike on this. When the series that we're enjoying, concepts that we're enjoying get canceled, you wonder what's going to replace them and hope it's going to be something similar that will fill that niche. Well, Teen Titans is a great example of something that we both love, and it was announced that a new Teen Titans series is coming back. Suicide Squad is being replaced by a new Suicide Squad series. And Nightwing is being replaced by a series, it looks like it's going to be called Grayson. That's going to be focusing on Dick Grayson's life, where he's going to be taking more of a secret agent role. How do you feel about these three series come back? Does that build excitement for you? Do you think that DC's doing the right thing relaunching these series? Where are you kind of at?
Oh, I'm definitely happy that we're getting these back. And I got to see on DC Infinite about some of the notes on Grayson, because you and I first talked about it and you told me, and then I jumped on and I was just reading up, and I was like, oh, it kind of seeing it lay out. I'm looking forward to seeing where they're going to go with this, how they're going to deal with this, because this isn't going to be Dick Grayson Nightwing. This is Dick Grayson, a secret agent type of storyline and this type of character. It sounds like it's still going to be the same person we're used to and we're comfortable, but he's going to be in a different situation. So that should be kind of a neat thing. Plus, also finding out that the co-writer on the series is a former CIA operative.
And we've talked to Tom on the show before, Tom King.
Yeah.
For Once Crowded Sky.
Yeah, so it's, you get that element of realism along with it. So I'm very excited to read this stuff.
Now, I was reading from the blurb, and I like the mystery behind this, because it makes sense with where the character's at right now in Forever Evil, that there would need to be some form of status quo change following this. I'm going to be very curious to see what happens with him, like to put him in this place. But also, there seem to be some hints that there was going to be new supporting cast, which is great. Obviously, would make sense with this new arch nemesis. But then there was also some familiar faces they said that would be returning into it. So I'm curious to see who those people will be and what that's all about. It's going to be, I'm very excited because I've been really digging Nightwing. And the idea of not having Dick Grayson monthly was really worrying me.
Yeah, he's, again, that character that, he's the jump-in point. He's a linchpin. It's somebody that we can feel like we can relate to. And it's, he's always described as the big brother. And so I wanted him around, whether it was in a back title in his own series. So getting this version of him should be, I am curious and I am interested and I am pretty excited to read this stuff just because this is for me a different type of Nightwing. This is a different Dick Grayson, and I want to see where this goes, and I'm excited for it. So definitely looking forward to that. And, of course, always want Teen Titans. Always want that. So, yay.
Now, Teen Titans, it looks like Beast Boy is going to be joining the team. And it looks like we're losing Superboy, which might be obvious for obvious reasons with what we know about Superboy currently. So I'm excited about that team, too. I'd like to see more of Beast Boy in the New 52. And how that character fits in. So I'm excited for that. Suicide Squad is great. It looks like we're going to be keeping Harley and Deadshot, but we're also going to be picking up characters like Deathstroke and Joker's daughter. So I'm excited to see how that whole team pans out. And Suicide Squad should be a team where you're going to have regulars that you attach onto, but there's also going to be other characters due to the nature of the team that would come in on either on a mission-by-mission basis or because of the fact that there is a need to recruit new members because of divided loyalties or graduation or whatever you want to call or something else. Yes, that
heads
happens.
Go boom. There's always going to be change on Suicide Squad. But the thing I thought was kind of interesting, we have two sets of the same type of dynamic where we have Deadshot and Deathstroke, Joker's daughter, Harley Quinn, where you kind of have that same type of personality, but on the one side we've seen, Deadshot and Harley have a code of honor, a code, of conduct. Though we've also seen Harley go a little bit on the crazy side, but we have seen her hold on to sometimes just her character, whereas with Joker's daughter, we've never seen her be anything other than herself. And while Deathstroke does have that code of honor, there is how much can you trust him? How much where's this going to go? So it's going to be kind of interesting to see such powerful characters, such similar dynamics interacting with each other.
Well, Joker's daughter also has that interesting bit, though, where she's fighting to grasp an identity that wasn't originally hers. This idea of her grabbing onto the Joker. But Black Manta being on the team, I forgot to mention that. He's a character who I know we've both become very fond of.
Yeah.
It looks like... Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was going to agree with you. And he's, again, another one of those characters that he's definitely is a bad guy. But He does. There's the level of evil. There's the level of bad. And it's, throughout the Forever Evil, you've seen him do honorable things. You've seen him do the right thing. Now, is this going to be punishment for, what he's done? Is this, is this kind of a understanding after Forever Evil? So are we going to see a different type of Suicide Squad even? Not a completely hopeless villains who are expendable, or a chance for these characters to get in good with the government, in good with society? Could this actually be a rehabilitation of them?
I'm looking to see what, here's one of the things I really like. I was looking at the Deadshot's costume on that cover, and I'm hoping that's going to be the costume they go with, because it's getting closer to the costume that we had before the New 52. And he's somebody who I think the costume was a little bit of a step back. And I've always liked more of the classic Deadshot costume, and this seems to be like an interesting hybrid of, some of a new direction, but more of what I like about Deadshot's costume. I don't know, certain characters' costuming really matters to me, and there's the cover for this. Really, I'm hoping it's representative of the art we're going to be getting on the inside, because I really like some of the costume design choices that they did.
I don't know. I'm kind of comfortable with what we have, what we had, the new look of the guy, if that is actually the new look. Deadshot's one of those characters where we've talked about Batman having modifications in his costume to fit a situation. I can see Deadshot also having modifications, so I'm more comfortable with him letting the artists have some free reign and just, have a little bit of creative license with it, as long as they keep within... there are certain guidelines that, as long as they're keeping within, I'll be okay with. They go completely skewed off kilter, then I'd probably have a, whoa, what's going on here? But you keep it within that general, groove of who is Deadshot, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I am too. It's going to be one of those titles that I'm really interested in. Deathstroke, I'm going to be glad to see him more regularly, because obviously, because of Arrow, I'm very into the character concept right now, so I want to read more of him. It's a good time to do this, because he's become a very popular character on television, so, why not get him back into comics in a more high-profile role? It's a good decision.
Oh, yeah.
Want to talk a little about Batman Eternal?
Woohoo!
Okay, Batman Eternal #1. Scott Snyder and James Tynion IV, story and script. Consulting writers Ray Fawkes, John Layman, and Tim Seeley. Art by Jason Fabak. Colors by Brad Anderson, lettering by Nick J. Napolitano. Cover by Jason Fabak and Tomeo Mori. Variant cover by Andy Kubert, Jonathan Glapian, and Brad Anderson. Editor is Katie Kubert. Group editor is Mark Doyle. Batman created by Bob Kane. And apologies for any name butchery. Weekly Batman. I've been a big fan, and we have been on the show, of the weekly delivery concept. Just the idea that I don't want every title to be weekly, but it's great to have a 1, 2, they're going to have a few of them that are going to be doing, that are telling like a longer form story in a quicker serial delivery. There's something about that I find really interesting. And it looks like that this is going to, on some level, if I was understanding it correctly, and I might be wrong on this is just, things I kind of read along the way before we actually got the release, but this is going to be reflective or be reflected in some of the other Bat titles as it goes along. I'm excited for this. It's a big event. What did you think of the first issue? What were your impressions?
Oh, I was doing a happy dance, man. This was one really cool story, great opening, and just hits you hard. But I gotta tell you, I love the artwork here. Mm-hmm. This was some beautiful stuff, and I'm like, okay, because that was the thing. I'm wondering, is this going to be the same creative team through all of the weekly series, or are we going to get other teams rotating in? Because I wasn't sure about, because that's a tough task to give to a art team to do a weekly title. So I was wondering where they were going to go and how they were doing that.
I don't know the answer to that. I think we're going to find out as we go along, if it's going to be the same art team or if they're going to do it in cycles, which I'm a fan of as well. If they find a way to find creative teams that cycle it in a way that makes sense. So, I don't know. That's a very good question, but I agree with you on the art, especially the opening page. I had seen it before in the preview, there's always something different for me when I read a preview and then when I actually read it in the book. I enjoy previews because it gets me excited. It does what it's supposed to do. But when I actually read it in the book and I know I'm reading it for the intention of following along the rest of the storyline, I read it differently. Do you do that?
Yeah, all definite. It's especially because when we're talking about a title, I'll read a book a couple times and start noticing things that I didn't catch before. But yeah, this again, I'd seen this before, but it's still, I was like, whoa! It does catch you, and it does make you say, wow, because it's the opening page. Gotham City is burning, literally, and you got Bruce, just strung up on the bat signal, beaten, bloodied, and he's got a bat symbol carved into his chest. I was like, wow, that's an opening of a bat series.
Yeah, I don't know who this villain is, but boy, I've taken everything from you piece by piece. Watch, Bruce. Watch as you lose everything. What an opening. And then we flash back to now, Jason Bard. And I don't think Jason Bard's been introduced in the New 52 yet, has he?
This is the first I'm recalling of him.
So it's great to have him being brought in. They're doing what, I know we're both big fans of this, expanding the Gotham City Police Department's role in the Batman universe. I think the New 52 has done a good job of this, but I'm always a big fan of a more detailed, because of the fact that they're taking Commissioner Gordon in this storyline and setting him aside, putting him in jail, whatever they're doing, the idea of having some guys on street level, like Bard, just adds and fleshes out the whole thing. And obviously his respect for Gordon recruiting him, having those conversations together, comes out there. And is it like somewhere written that you've got to encounter Harvey Bullock first, or and he makes you want to turn around and go back?
Well, it's what I always take it as. Harvey is Gordon's trusted hand. Mm-hmm. That's the guy that Gordon trusts first and foremost on that force. He knows he's a good cop. He knows he's a straight shooter, and he also knows that Bullock will be able to give a good assessment of the guy as soon as he's seeing him, because this guy's coming in and he's already being assessed. He's already being judged by all the other cops, especially because Gordon's speaking so high, giving him such high praise. That's really going to put a target on him just for, the corrupt cops, the legitimate cops who would probably want the job that he just got. There's so many different levels of what this guy is going to deal with, on top of just the general welcome to Gotham. This is unlike any city you've dealt with. Mm-hmm. I love just that opening between those two. Yeah,
and I agree with you. It was the whole. I was partially joking, just because Bullock is not exactly your soft touch, and it's for every reason you're mentioning. It shows a lot when you see those segments of Gordon's belief in Bullock, because I was reading between the lines of that too, that he kind of sizes people up and he'll report to Gordon whether he's got it, because Bullock's not one to bite his tongue. So he'll say something if he thinks the kid doesn't have it.
Yeah, I love seeing Gordon in the field getting dirty. Actually having to throw down with Pig. It's not just, we'll wait for Batman to save the day. Granted, he's in communication with the Bat, but Gordon still has a job to do. Gordon's still got to try to do what he can to take down these guys. And I love seeing just, the fact that Gotham PD doesn't just sit back and let the Bat handle the crazies. No, they got a job to do. It's protect and serve. If Bat can come in and help out and give the support, great. If not, it is up to Gotham PD to do the job. And I always love seeing that, especially in Gotham. You need to have that strong police presence.
He leads by example. That's one of the things that I really respect too. When you're in Gotham and you're really fighting the darkness that envelopes Gotham, in order to get people to continue that fight, to continue following you, to continue believing in you, you're not going to get a whole lot of that if you're hiding behind a desk. They're going to basically, either you're corrupt, and that would be, there's a monetary reason why they're letting you sit behind that desk, or eventually they're going to start ignoring you.
Yeah.
And I get that. I really do. You're in a war zone. So Gordon doing that, you can see why he would start to have, in a very corrupt department, more and more loyal police officers following him, because they're the ones who signed up for the same reason that Gordon did. And they see that, this guy's a real deal. He's not just telling us to go out here and live like this. He lives like this.
Yeah.
And he's right there. There's something about that I just greatly admire. I don't have that kind of experience in my life as far as being, in a military or a police end or on the fire department end or, anybody who's doing those type of things where they're protecting the lives of others. But I greatly admire it. And I think when it's done well in a comic like this, you see why you should. And that's why Gordon's always been one of my favorite characters. Yeah. Professor Pig, what a great Grant Morrison creation. Just another, of the Batman's rogues gallery. It was one of Morrison's edicts when he was jumping on to doing Batman work, was that he wanted to create characters that would have a lasting impact, characters that would flesh out an already diverse rogues gallery, and he succeeded. Pig is one of those that he's got a huge creep value with those dolls that he creates along the way out of kids, and what he was trying to do there, drugging those little kids for the purpose of making him like those creeps that we've already seen so far.
Oh God, yeah, and Pig is one of those characters when they first introduced him, I was like, what the heck is this? Mm-hmm. And every time we get another just edition of him, just another, and it's another writer taking that same creation and either rolling with what we're used to with him or actually tweaking it a little bit, making him a little bit creepier, a little bit crazier, a little bit variations on who Pig is. And he's definitely becoming one of those members of the Rogues Gallery that I'm like, I got to see more. I want to see more of this guy. He's a neat character and a neat villain to be part of this universe.
Batman explaining the issues that he was having, escaping death traps. And I like that they didn't show us, because we're seeing this from Gordon's perspective at the moment. A lot of times we see Batman contacting Gordon and Gordon's on the other end. This was an interesting twist on that. We didn't get to see the death trap. We just heard it through Batman's end, knowing that it was bad enough to ruin his suit, but he had a spare and he shows up in that suit of armor. I thought that was really, really great, because I felt like we really were witnessing that whole thing from Gordon's perspective instead of the other way around. It was something I liked. I liked the switch up.
Yeah, and that's, again, it was funny, we just 10 seconds ago commented about the fact that Bruce will have different type of costumes and uniforms for various situations. I do like seeing him in the heavy armored uniform, because it's, again, he wouldn't normally wear that because of maneuverability, mobility, etc. But the fact that he does have this super high tech hardcore armor that can take a beating and can dish one out. I like seeing that type of variations.
Can we get, if they need to do another team-up book, can we get Batman Gordon?
Oh, God, I'd love those.
When those two are running together like that, I was just thinking to myself, first of all, and whether or not they actually do that, I'm half joking, because I would buy it in an instant. I think it'd be a phenomenal book. But that says something when you see two people running together and it gives you that emotion of, I want to read that like every week. Batman running off with Gordon, getting to know what their friendship is like. And, the whole old Warhorse thing, just knowing that these are comrades in arms. These are guys that they know each other well enough because of what they've been through together. Even though it's the younger Batman and the younger Gordon, they've been through enough at this point that they can have that kind of lethal weapon. I loved the lethal weapon movies. Mel Gibson, Danny Glover. Yeah. Those type, Die Hard, you get that kind of stuff. But I mean, the real, buddy cop type of things that you get there just works so well with Batman and Gordon. I really just love that moment.
Yeah, it's funny because going through multiple read-throughs, you start looking to see when the one guy had the gun in his hand and when he didn't have it, etc. And it was something that when you're approached with this situation, you get the two running, you get that really cool moment, that kind of sly look on Gordon's face. I'm sitting there hooping and hollering, but then after we get the ending, you go back and you read through again. It's like, okay, where's the gun at? When's the guy actually pull out the gun? And I love seeing these two team up, and just the way they played this out, that the ending completely, it was a beautiful swerve that I didn't see coming.
Yeah, especially when you see him running, doing his kind of parkour down the railing and stuff like that. You don't see the gun.
Yeah.
Now, the thing was, when we see him later with the gun in his hand, we see the same thing Gordon's seeing.
Right.
But it does look, coloring-wise, it looks like there's almost a hazy image. I don't know if that was done deliberately, but Gordon fires the shot, and we see it. And the guy was trying to explain, I'm not holding, and Gordon fires that, and the explosion goes off. What do you think happened to Gordon there? Is that something Pig did, or is it something that a villain that we haven't seen has done to him? Because there was an illusion. Gordon clearly saw that. We were meant to see it.
Right. I'm not thinking it's Pig. I'm thinking whoever it is that broke Bruce and has him hogtied to the bat signal and burning the city, that's who did it. So I don't know how they did it yet, because we don't know who the villain is, but that's the person behind it. Because my guess is this person's master plan to destroy Gotham is first, let's eliminate some of his allies. Let's get Gordon out of Gotham PD so, Batman doesn't have Gordon to fall on. Plus, we're probably going to see, once again, I'm always worried about Alfred. I'm always worried about the various members of the Bat family. Because if this villain knows Bruce is Batman, as we saw that in the very first page, he's going to know who the other members of the Bat family are. So what's going to happen to them? So it was a great thing to have that intro where we see the main big bad call him Bruce. So now we know this guy eventually will learn who Bruce is, if not already know. So everybody's got a what's going to happen to them kind of mark to them. And I think, just seeing the initial arrest of Gordon, the initial target on Gordon was a great start to this series, because not only did we get some cool action sequences, we got these great moments, you got a holy crud, Gordon just got arrested. You got a whoa kind of moment on the first issue.
Now, Gordon was trying to analyze the situation and basically saying, that's not what that box does. So There's another mystery there. I mean, it's just adding to this further sense of this was a major, huge setup. I liked in the moment that Batman said, not this time, I can stay. Batman wants to be there for his friend. He recognizes he's in trouble. This is the Batman that we usually see reserved for, like, Damian, Dick Grayson, most recently in Forever Evil. The Batman we would see with, like, Tim Drake, Jason, Batgirl, Alfred. He's dropping the mask, so to speak, in the way that he's carrying himself with Gordon. He's not putting on his usual show of, I'm going to vanish now and, be a little bit more ethereal. No, it's, I'm your friend, I'm here. And there's something in that was another hoorah moment for me, just seeing that. Because I think that those are important sequences to show us as the reader that he's going to react differently. This is not the way Batman would react with everyone. He would react that way with Gordon, though. Yeah.
Yeah, again, we've always talked about this, the mutual respect, that comrade in arms that these two has. And I loved seeing, because we talk about how great Jim Gordon is. And with within any police department, fictional or real, you do have those people that you respect and you admire, but you also have the dark side of it. You have the people who are cops just because they want to be tough guys. And you got people who, especially in Gotham, you've got a corrupt city where they're looking for the easy buck. They're looking for, hey, I'll look the other way, a little bit of kickbacks here. I'm protected because of this. I'm protected because of that. So you got to have this noble knight, but you also have to have this darkness within that department. And you need that nice balance of it, which this was some really cool moments, because you've got Gordon who fired at an unarmed person, according to this, hit a fuse box and derailed the train and killed who knows how many people died on that train, even though none of that, that box shouldn't have caused the train to jump the rail. The gun, the guy looked like he had a gun to Gordon, and we saw what Gordon was seeing. So something happened there. There's a lot of unanswered questions, but because of the situation, we're going to get an initial attack on Gordon. I thought just the way they played this out was absolutely wonderful, where you've got high action, but you also got the intrigue of the story.
Yeah, it's really a good kickoff issue. It's really important when you're doing a series like this to really grab people right away. And if this series really did that, I'm excited to see where everything's going next, knowing that we're going to be seeing so many major players, because we got a preview of this a little while ago in the Bat books.
Yeah.
So now to see this in practice come out here is just really, really great. I can't wait to see how it leads to what we've already seen.
Yeah, and also thinking about it, we're going to get Forbes becoming the acting commissioner while Gordon's in jail. or while Gordon's arrested on leave, however you want to call it. So we're going to get a commissioner who's not completely in with the bat. So once again, we're going to go back to kind of little issues that he's going to have with the PD. He's still going to have his support staff, but not going to be completely in tight with it.
And I like that. I mean, that's something that really stands out for me.
It just laying down the groundwork for multiple levels of what's going to happen in this story. And I love the fact that issue 1, I'm already thinking 3, 4, 5 issues in, saying, okay, this could happen. Where's this going to go? And you start getting those questions. You start going, okay, this, and this is what you want from the weekly series. You want to have all of these issues just go bam, 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 hit you. Okay, what about this? What about that? Because, a lot of the times with the previous weekly series, there was a lot of times people would, there was some criticism on the internet. Oh, this issue lagged. This issue was a building issue. Well, you keep getting issues like this where we have stories building, but we have action within it. So this was a great way to lay the groundwork, introduce suspicion, introduce characters. Oh yeah, and here's some cool stuff going on. Here's some cool explosions. This visually a great train derailment scene. That whole couple pages was absolutely beautiful. This was a nice blend of what you need to have in an opening issue.
But it was also destruction with substance because it had a purpose.
Yeah,
like everything that happened there was really to set aside a situation where somebody needs to take the blame for this, because we've got a public that's going to be outraged. Gordon was there. He's the one that pulled the trigger. Well, we got a problem.
Yeah.
You want to talk about Batman and Aquaman?
Oh, yeah. Our next issue will be Batman and Aquaman number 29. The writer is Peter J. Tomasi, with pencils by Patrick Gleason, inks by Mick Gray with Mark Irwin and Norm Rapmund, with colors by John Klaisz, letters Carlos M. Mangual, with cover by Gleason, Gray, and Calise, with a variant by RC Studios, assistant editor Darren Shane, and editor Rachel Gluck Stern, and group editor Mark Doyle. And of course, Batman was created by Bob Kane.
Can I just say how much, I don't talk about it much on the show, and I want to get better at it because I'm terrible at this. The art team on this series has just been phenomenal. I don't talk enough about how much I really enjoy how beautiful this book is. I don't give this art team enough credit for how much, just month in, month out, they evoke such wonderful emotion in what they do. This is a very emotionally driven book. Whether you're high-fiving because of a great moment or drawn down because of a moment or, everywhere in between, they know how to really pull at the heartstrings. This is really the emotional conscience book of the Bat universe, in the sense that anything major that happens is reflected here in a way that gets to the personal. And that, to me, is the personal connection you get from this book. I don't remember another Batman title ever delivering this much personal narrative for Batman month in, month out. I'm not saying the other books haven't ever done it, but to the level and the consistency month in, month out that this book does it, because of the fact that it has, I don't want to say the luxury because it diminishes what they're doing here. I just think the tone and the development of what Peter Tomasi and the team have done here is really something special and unique in Batman storytelling. This is, whenever this run ends, whenever, they've decided that, hey, time's up, I've kind of told the stories that I wanted to tell, we're going to, head in a different direction, whatever. This is a run that will be remembered. And I think it's going to be one of those, dark horse runs where, people, because of the fact that there's so many big events happening in the Snyder book, that it's often easy to forget to mention just how fantastic this book is. I've really come to appreciate it more and more as it's gone on, though. And the art team I really need to give props to, because I throw out Peter Tomasi's name a lot, and deservedly so. But this art team and Peter Tomasi, I think they just gel. There's something special going on here.
Amen. I'm just, as you're talking, I'm just nodding my head saying, yes, agree. And one of the things that I've been because I initially sort of stockpiled this issue because of all the craziness that was going on in the other parts of the Bat universe. But when I got caught up on this thing, this book became one of those I got to jump to when it comes out, and I didn't want to stockpile anymore. And this is a prime example of the issue, and part of the reason why, because we're getting these great, just you mentioned about the emotional and just issues, but the thing I love is what we're getting out of Bruce while he's in costume. Normally when he's in the cowl, it's Batman, it's not Bruce. Well, we're getting elements of Bruce Wayne in the cowl. Yeah. And I love the fact that he is being more open and just more honest with the correct people. Like here, when he's this opening page with Aquaman, he's letting his emotion come out. He's not being reserved, secretive Batman. He's being very open. He's Ra's al Ghul dug up and stole the bodies of my son and his mother from the grave in my own damn house. I love just how right there, you get this anger, you get this emotion, but the fact that Bruce is sitting there admitting to his friend Arthur, hey, not only just again acknowledging the fact that his son's dead, but this guy came into my backyard, stole from me my son. And it was just that powerful, just that, completely letting down his guard to an appropriate person, because Aquaman and him, I can see a mutual respect, and you can see just that level between the two of them just right out the gate. And this is something that I was like, wow, this is, again, one of the reasons I hate saying glad, but I am glad that Damian is dead, because we are getting these moments from Batman. This is why, it was a good thing that what they did, and I'm like, wow, this is leading to some really cool stuff.
As a teacher, I'm going to realize that if I'm ever going to do any tutoring for the Al Ghul family, I'm not going to ask about any bonuses, extras, severance packages, things like that. I'm just going to cheerfully be glad that if they let me get on my boat and get off whatever island they're on, that I'm able to do so and thank them very, very kindly. As a matter of fact, I may pay them some money as a thank you for their hospitality.
Yes.
Wow, that underwater sequence. It's funny. Talk about a mixture of emotions, gruesome and all that. But am I the only one that wanted to be in there with Titus?
Yes.
Like the Bat Hound. I love that stuff. I mean, that's to me, I would read a Batman and Titus book. I mean, that was really, really cool. One stowaway's enough, Alfred. But yet Titus, the demeanor of Batman is present there. The demeanor of Damian is there with Titus. I agree with everything you said about, I'm glad the direction they went with Damian, because the storytelling we've gotten is phenomenal. I'm still going to say, and I don't care if I'm wrong on this. It's not a matter of I'm even thinking that I'm right. I'm not making conjecture here. I want Damian back. In the worst way, I want Damian back. Agreeing 110% with everything you said. So I'm not saying that I think this is where this is leading. I'm hoping that's where this is leading. There's a huge distinction on that, because I'm well aware that it could go one way or another, and I'm greatly enjoying the storytelling. So if they go and they introduce a new Robin at some point, or a new sidekick, or whatever they do down the road, great, phenomenal. That's cool. I'm happy with that. If they bring back Damian, I'm thrilled with that, because I love that character. I want him back. I really, really do, because of everything you said about the emotions they've made. You know how they say absence makes the heart grow fonder? The storytelling leading up to Damian's death in this book made me closer to the character. What they did after Damian's death made me closer to the character. I want to see that kid back with this family. I really, really do.
See, here's with me in this, because I have been really thinking in depth, do I want Damian back? Do I not want him back? And on one hand, I say no, I don't want him back, partially because I personally cannot come up with a story that I think would be worthy of him, of how, equal to or exceeding how he died. That way he died, that story that was laid out was just so perfect and just so wonderfully and beautifully crafted. I personally cannot come up with the idea. Now, Tomasi, he can. He's a talented writer. He could pull this off. So if that's the end game of his storyline, I'm okay with it because it's in his hands. But for me, I can't come up with a cool enough a way that's worthy of Damien's return, because it's got to be something epic. It's got to be something that's just, whoa kind of moments. I need to have that same type of reaction, that same type of emotional reaction. Now, that being said, they bring him back, I'll be happy, because he's a wonderful character. I've always said I so wanted to see Damien's first date and just how he would deal with it, or Damien's reaction in dealing with the regular normal people in the world, how he deals with them. I always loved those moments where we got to see Damien out of the costume and just being Damien and just reacting and interacting. And you mentioned Titus, just he's a great, he's a dog, but he's a great character. And seeing Damien with the dog was always just absolutely wonderful stuff. There's so many great stories that we can get from Damien that if they bring him back, I'll be happy. But I personally just can't fathom a way that would be justifiable and worthy of what we had before.
See, to me, the reasons that you stated for what would be cool about having him back is more important to me than the big, flashy, dramatic return. Now, let me put a caveat on that. Amen to everything you're saying as far as I would love it to be this stupendous reason for him to come back. Great, cool. But there's too many times where they bring back characters and they don't have enough storytelling to do what you're mentioning here. You're mentioning just how many great potential stories there are for Damien. That, to me, is the justification to bring him back, if they do. I'm not saying that I'm going to riot if they don't. I can understand the reason for keeping him dead, too. So I'm really on the fence as far as emotionally. I'm not like, in that place. I want the character back for personal reasons because I want to read the same stories you're mentioning. So, a magic wand poof bringing him back, while is a little bit of a downer because you want something dramatic, it's the stories that follow that to me are the real payoff. You can bring back characters with these big, flashy, dramatic moments and then have no substance to where you're going, no direction. Then it becomes pointless. We've brought them back and, okay, now what? So then why did you bring them back? Why not leave the moment what you're talking about? What an epic, death. And it meant something. Unless you've got a reason. I believe any character who died in comics, and this might not be popular to some people who are like, dead means dead. Nah, to me, dead only means dead until you've got, a reason to really bring them back and tell long-term stories. Any dead character that somebody can do a series with, where they've got like a really rich idea for developing, should be able to be brought back so the writer can do that series. I don't think that diminishes the moment of their death and the story that led to that death. There's a drama there. Damien coming back next issue. That's not happening, but I'm saying let's say that happened. Next issue, all of a sudden, wham, Damien's back, dramatic moment, whatever. It doesn't take away from the fact that, wow, what amazing storytelling we had building up from his death to the aftermath of his death to that moment. None of that's taken away. Those stories are still there. They still pull the heartstrings. To me, it's always a waste when you bring that character back and you've got no long-term direction or reason for it. Then that character goes and sits on the shelf. That diminishes the death. That diminishes the stories. When you bring this character back and now they're not given at least the front and center that they would deserve. If I'm making it, I don't know if I'm making any sense there.
Oh, no, making perfect sense. I get you.
That's kind of where I am with the character death and bringing them back. Dead means dead, unless you've got a really strong pitch with a really strong direction. That's really what it is for me. That's the only thing. Because, they're comic characters. That's part of the fun. They're going to come back, poof.
And I agree with you that, again, if they did do the magic wand wave, if they did the Lazarus pit, I wouldn't say, oh, it ruins everything. But again, I'm agreeing with you in that if they just brought him back and then didn't have anything long term, what they were going to do with him, that would ruin what had come before. if you've got this cool story and then the aftermath of Damian dealing with coming back, or Bruce dealing with the fact that his son's now back, is this really his son? Can he actually believe that this is, is this Damian, or is this something else that looks like Damian? It's that whole that whole controversy, and just his own personal turmoil that he'd have to deal with, and just everything that plays out. So there's so many stuff they can do with bringing him back, but it's also, I don't know, part of me, I got to wait to see how this plays out. And this is a creative team that I trust. So I'm not worried or nervous or, oh my God, this is going to be terrible, worried about that. I'm confident that with this creative team, we're going to get some stuff, and we're going to get something neat and memorable to speak about. But I'm okay with them keeping him dead, and I absolutely love the little monster. As I said, I thought so much long term on this kid, but if they decide no, we're going to keep him dead, he is as dead as Thomas and Martha Wayne. Okay, I'm all right with that, because we had these great moments and this great growth in character and title because of his death.
Amen. See, and that's the funny part is, it isn't me. Sometimes when you do a story, when you read a story like this, oh, it better end with this character coming back or something. I'm not in that place. I'm in the place where because of what you said, I trust this creative team so much and the direction that whatever is going to happen is going to happen, and it's going to be a great story. And they've just earned that confidence. I'm just enjoying the ride. But part of when you pull emotions from your reader, you're going to have people that are on both sides of the fence and somewhere in the middle. And that's kind of cool, because you shared some very personal reasons why, like, well, if Damian's come back, I want it to be a big event. When he comes back, I want there to be some pop and flair to it, and there should be something there, substance. You're right to feel that way, because that's what it means to you. That's what emotionally it has, it's the way it struck you. For me, it's, I want the character back because I think there's a lot of long-term longevity. And it's funny, in our discussion, I think we've realized that everything that we've both said, we both want. It's the perfect package, would be him coming back in this dramatic moment that would really allow for great storytelling. But yet neither of us would be dissatisfied if the character stays dead, because there is an intended direction to that as well. So I like that I don't know. I don't feel like anything is being written on the wall as far as that makes me believe Damian's back for sure. There's nothing written on the wall that makes me feel like he's dead for sure. And that's the fun of reading this story, because I don't think anything here is set in stone. For us as the reader, they haven't telegraphed it. And I like that. I think it's to me it's making the story much more engaging and gripping, that I'm going in emotionally wanting certain things to happen, and whether they do or they don't, they've got me. They hooked me. That's what a creative team needs to do. And the Aquaman that they draw in this book is killer. I really, really love the look. There's a definite style that matches the artist. My favorite artists are the ones that have signature style. They're their own look. The artistic teams, when they do it, there's something about them that when you read that book, that's them. This is their take on it. It's very reminiscent of, what we classically feel about the character and their look, and they got the costumes right, but there's a way of drawing the figure and the form that matches the artistic, take of that particular creative team. They do that in this book, and it looks so good. Just really, really does. When Aquaman's looking over those whales, that were used basically as, incubation pods for the clones, and his outrage. And, he's experienced atrocities that Batman's, experience in different ways, and they're, he's obviously feeling for his friend Bruce too in what's going on there. So there's a lot of connection between these two and what Ra's al Ghul's doing, basically playing puppet master to the world and the concepts of life and death to accomplish his goals. There's something to that. I love the way this is playing out. That was a gorgeous sequence in the fact that it evoked the emotion that I wanted to see them get vengeance on Ra's al Ghul.
The line, "I want to hear him scream today, Bruce." You and me both, Arthur. You and me both. Just that, beautiful, just that wonderful artwork, and just that you're talking about, just that etching on Arthur's face, the couple, that whole sequence, again, that's that that absolutely beautiful horror that we get from this, and you can just tell that these animals were suffering, and just you feel Arthur's pain, you feel Bruce's pain. I loved these moments. And other art moments are when we get to see the underwater sequence with the bat sub, or whatever you want to call it, and how every artist has their own little variations on the bat plane, but also on like this bat sub, more of a manta ray, kind of with the whipping tail for propulsion. And just, I'd love to, again, let the artistic team have a little bit of creativity, because Bruce is going to have different variations on his equipment, so there's going to be some artistic license in that. And I love seeing that type of where they're giving this creative team some free reign and saying, okay, enjoy what you're doing here.
The creep factor of the various versions of Damien. And the power of the next page, when you flip over, Damien, and you Ra's al Ghul talking about the sons of the Batman, take the Batman apart. Just those sequences, the horror of a father having to again and again take down the image of his child, and knowing it's not him, but wanting him back so bad. It's wondering if one of these could be the key to somehow bringing back his son. Because we've seen him wrestle with knowing he lives in a world where people come back, to try and connect with that and use some of those things to his advantage for a change, which really flies in the face of who he is. That's been a part of the story that I've really just loved.
Yeah, and again, I love the fact that it's a violent, but it's not a complete violent death and destruction way of dealing with them. They were born out of the whale, so they have that part aquatic in it. So Arthur's able to jump in and take control of them and get them. And instead of just beating and killing and destroying all these things, able to take them down to Atlantis and maybe do something with them down there. Who knows what the Atlantean technology will be able to do with them? But there's still just that it's not a complete violent way of dealing with them. I thought that was a great way of handling it, because again, Bruce doesn't want to destroy these, because yes, it's not Damien, but it's still, he's got that, he hits that conflict. And I love seeing the two friends work together on this, so it's not just simply about smash and bash and destroy everything that doesn't look normal.
The strategic factor of Aquaman always plays as well. For years, he's the guy that talks to fish. No, he talks to giant whales that eat like armies. And that's after he was in there with the major fisticuffs, showing how powerful he is. So this is, hey, we don't have time for this right now. Let's clean sweep this and move along. That's when he calls in a friend and does that. And there's something to him. This is something, when the Peter David run, was my first time I really started appreciating this character. And that's, for people who were big fans of the character beforehand, that was my first opportunity to really read Aquaman monthly and get into what's great about the character. And since then, I've really just enjoyed writers who really get this kind of Aquaman. There's a balance to him that comes across in these sequences. And very unique, very different, leading to this great Batman fight through ninja. I mean, anytime you can have Batman fight ninjas, way cool. To the point where he almost gets to the plane, almost gets to his end game. But Ra's al Ghul, we need to remember that Ra's al Ghul is, one of the more brilliant Batman villains. When you have him in these sequences being just a little bit ahead of Batman, put just enough in Batman's way, he knows Batman backwards and forwards. Because he studied him. He wanted Batman to be his heir for the longest time. So this is the detective that he wanted to take his legacy and continue it on. That was the point of all this. And when he wouldn't do that, that's when he started building clones. That sequence right there, there's something that plays into that is so rich. And when you've got writers that get that and they bring that in, they remind you why these villains are cool. And that whole sequence, Batman, falling off of the and Aquaman catching him, I've got you. There was something to that moment that I almost got there. I fought my way through. It adds a power to Ra's al Ghul. It adds a power to Batman. Nobody lost anything in that sequence. And you want to see the chase continue.
Well, I think I loved about this sequencing was starting with the ninjas. You have that action sequence with the coloring and just heavy shadow with a heavy focus on red, for the blood and for just the carnage that is going on there. But it's the complete silence of that. You don't need bravado. You don't need him, saying, I got to catch a race. You know exactly what he's doing. And then as he's chasing after it, I loved seeing the man-bats in the distance already flying off. Because, Raish would have his army of man-bats, his man-bat ninjas, or whatever you want to call them. I loved the fact that they were there and present ahead of him. And it was just these great moments of he's almost there and he's sitting there beating on the plane to the point where he's cracking the windshield. It's just, again, powerful Bruce just yelling, give me back my son. It always gets to me just seeing the emotional outpouring by, where, Bruce puts down the reserve and he's just pure hardcore, I'm going to make you pay. I'm going to make you hurt.
Yeah, exactly. This leads to a sequence where we get Batman teaming up with Wonder Woman. And again, Wonder Woman playing with the idea that she's taking on this whole, Diana persona that Clark has kind of influenced. Hey, you want to get in touch with, the human side of it, kind of see what it's like to step into the world and not be on all the time. I like that was subtly put into this book.
Yeah.
There's a connection point there for those of us that are reading other, titles with Wonder Woman involved. But at the same time, there's just enough there to kind of give a reader who maybe isn't an insight into who she is and what their relationship's like in that one panel that builds to seeing more. I like that these team-ups haven't felt forced. Like when you're doing a novelty like this, where you're teaming Batman up with other people, this really has become a story-driven Brave and the Bold.
Yeah, I didn't know what they were going to do when they killed off Damian, how they were going to go. And when they first just started all the members of the Bat family, like, oh, okay, it's going to be, Bruce dealing with the grief. And then they continued on with Two-Face story. And now we're going to, and I'm like, man, this is, it's kind of a Brave and the Bold, but it's not really, because it is still focused on Bruce and Robin. It's still Batman and Robin relationship. Just Robin happens to be dead right now, but it's Bruce dealing with the loss of his son and how everything that's playing off of, with his death, the story that came out of it. So I really do appreciate and enjoy this. And again, just kudos on the art sequences with just this last sequence that you have when we first get the London scene. Right in the corner there, the shadow, you can see the Batcape flowing. So you see Bruce on the rooftop. And it's just, again, it was something that I didn't notice until the second read-through when I was going, more of an art look and looking closely. But you go from that sequence then to that close-up of Diana. And I always loved you see again, that really cool focus on the eyes as she's dropping her glasses down. It's, again, I'm really digging this art team, and they're doing some really cool, just visually pleasing stuff for me.
Yeah. The book just works on every level. The dialogue's fantastic. The art's really great. It's just everything about it is just really, it's an appealing book. And I don't talk about it in the same light that I do the main Batman title, and I should. And I know when we were doing the Raging Oscars this year, I really made it a point to look back at the year and think about what books were really hitting me hard. And this was one of them that really, really does. Every issue that I read of it evokes an emotion on a level that's equal to, and in some, I got to be careful how I say this, in some ways surpasses what's going on in the main Batman book because of its emotional focus.
Yeah.
And yet the story that's going on in the Batman book is so killer cool as well that they've really got a double 1-2 punch of heavy hitter titles leading. These are the flagship titles of the Batman family.
It's weird. On paper, I could say I could drop this title, but only on paper. Like if I look at, because with me, when I say I got to drop a title, I look at interconnectability to like the main universe, the main stories and stuff like that. So Batman and Detective Comics would be probably the two Bat titles, on paper I would say I could hold on to. Mm-hmm. But the sheer story I'm getting, the emotional connection I'm getting, the fact that this is technically the continuation of the Damian story, I could never let go of this title. And it's because of the fact that they didn't have any of the major story arcs going through this that we didn't talk about it a lot, but it was something that I still get this great Bruce. I get this great father-son story that we got when Batman and Robin first came on the scene. When they first had Bruce dealing with Damian, dealing with this, wonderful little monster that, that he was. And I'm like, oh man, so this is, in reality, I could never get rid of this title. But it's weird because by my normal judgment on what I could drop, what I can't drop, this would be one of those titles. So
wow.
it's kind of odd to say for me to say.
Are you saying because because you feel it's not as interconnected to the universe?
Not interconnected like as the direct line. It is connected because it is. And this is paper only on paper. When I look at saying if I got to drop a title, one of the first things I do look at is, okay, what kind of crossover potential, what kind of direct connection to, if they had any main events, would this be in there? Any main bad events, families, things like that. Would this cover into that? Would this connect into it, like the Gothopedia type of stuff or the Forever Evil type of stuff? And that type of story would be where I would look at a bad book. So for me, future connectability, I would say this would be less than, say, Batman and or Detective Comics. So that's kind of my mindset when I look at, can I drop a title or can I not drop a title?
I really enjoyed Layman's run on Detective Comics. So when I'm saying that, I'm not diminishing that. If I had to go down to two Batman books, though, it would be Batman and Robin and Batman, hands down. I mean, and I liked what was going on in The Dark Knight. When Greg Hurwitz took over, I thought they were heading in a really good direction there. But, out of the four, if I had to pick two, it's Batman and Robin. If I had to pick one, ooh.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, and in reality, I'm on the same boat as you. It'd be Batman, and Robin. Mm-hmm. But, looking at my crazy way I look at things, Batman and Robin wouldn't be on the list, but that's just, again, how I initially look at things. It wouldn't be the true, honest assessment based on what product I'm getting. As I said, on paper, this would be a title that I'm like, okay, yeah, you can push this aside. But it's not in reality. That's the power of the stories we're getting, is the fact that it throws against my illogical logic.
Yeah, see, I don't know. My paper, there's no way this title would wind up anywhere near on a list like that. I couldn't. I'd have. Because it's great. Can we talk about a title that's now thrown me a curveball?
Detective Comics. Oh, yeah.
Detective Comics number 30. This is Francis Manapul and Brian Buccellato on Storytellers. Jared K. Fletcher letters, Francis Manapul cover. Herman Meja, variant cover. Darren Shan, associate editor. Mark Doyle, group editor. Batman created by Bob Kane. And apologies for any name butchery. The team from the awesome Flash title now comes to Detective Comics. I don't know, I don't know when I missed that this was happening. And I want to comment again that I really enjoyed what John Layman was doing. That being said, when I was drooling over the art team for Batman and Robin, oh my gosh. One issue out of the starting gate, I adored the Flash. We talked about it on the show a number of times, these art styling and how it just matched the speed and the sense of who the Flash is and what they did there. Writing, storytelling, they really got to the core of the character. They're doing it again with Batman. And they changed things up a bit. It's not the same kind of storytelling and art style that they did in the Flash title. They have to use paneling differently in a way that better matches the Batman books. But yet they're using some of the tools that they used in Flash that added more depth to their story, where they take some of those pages, and have those double pages with multiple panels, long form, thin panels, and then, 8 boxes that are devoted to story content, and then they mix it up to fight sequences that just have this really cool, just visual vibe to them. They've put me in a position right now where it's like, oh my God, there's 3 of them. There's 3 Batman books out there that are just like killer, top tier titles. And
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's funny, as you're talking, I'm just sitting here nodding my head and grinning because amen on what you're saying. This has been, again, I know nothing no disrespect to previous creative team, but oh my God, this is some really cool stuff with just, this beautiful artistic style to it. And again, the non-traditional panels, the super long things. And this is a title that, I have both, I've got the paper issue, but I usually, when, we record and we're talking about a title, I'll pick up the digital copy because it's easier for me to click through it on digital, while we're talking than to actually flip pages. It's kind of just a space-wise and easy for me, but I'm loving how this looks visually on my computer screen because I got a nice widescreen monitor and everything's. I'm like, man, this looks cool. This is actually an issue that I'm enjoying, digitally more than I enjoy paper-wise, and it's just, I think it's just how it's laid out, and I'm just sitting there getting to enjoy this full page, double spread, and I'm like, wow, this is awesome.
On my iPad, because I've got Windows 8 on my computer. So what I do is when I read titles on my iPad, I'll take like certain pages with double page spreads or, a good cover or whatever, that I really, really enjoy, and I'll start taking screenshots with my iPad. And then I have them in, the photo stream that you have on your device, and I open it up on my computer. And in Windows 8.1, I have the screensaver set to a certain folder that I have, and I just keep putting like great comic art in there, and it rotates. So like I've constantly got and I've got 2 monitors, so I've constantly got, like, when I close out a program, great comic art in the background of what's going on my screens. I just really love it. I mean, it's a really cool way for me to like work. I'm in the middle of doing something for work. It's like, oh, cool. I remember that story. And it's really a testament to that's where I like digital. That's where digital's really working for me. Just the ability to be able to do that. And I'll actually start saving artwork from the internet for the same purposes. Like, just a great example, I know we use Freddie Williams, who we both love as a person and as an incredible artist. He does an amazing job of putting up like work that he's doing on comic books, putting up work that he's doing with commission sketches, just all kinds of, comic work that he's doing to touch base with the fans. But he will also post them on like social media in stages. So you can kind of see like the initial pencil line work and then inks and then, just as it goes through the finished product. And I really appreciate seeing that. So I'll like save those things and put them into that folder too. And I'll do that with other artists now because, he kind of opened me up to like, hey, I need to follow more artists online and see what they're doing, on different websites or their own personal website and stuff. And I really just greatly enjoy doing that because I just constantly have rich content. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there as a geeky fan saying, if you're not doing this with your, you've got some hard drive space, you can start making a folder of just like cool art and let it rotate. It's just really nice to kind of see what, and revisit things that are just really awesome. And this book just really kind of evoked that emotion. You were talking before about the non-traditional panels, and what I like about this for me is it's very cinematic,
yes.
the way that the storytelling is. And it sets itself apart from the other Bat books that I'm just really digging. And I think that's important when they've got 3 very distinct, and I'm taking Eternal out of that mix, and that's not diminishing Eternal. I always feel weekly storytelling just approaches things a little differently. The 3 monthly books that they have right now really have creative teams on them that are delivering unique experiences. And this was a good time to do this because I greatly loved everything I was doing before. There was no Bat book that I wanted to drop. So, hats off and yay to the creative teams who are doing it before. When you bring on new creative teams to books, you've got to really do it in a way where it feels like there's something special that has just happened. And I think that's just a very normal thing to happen. That happened when the New 52 launched. That's happening now when you do this with Detective. This came at the right time. This is a team that I already felt great about. And, ooh, are they delivering a Batman experience.
Oh, God, yeah. And again, this is one of those things where the story and the art are just meshing so well together because these are creative teams that have worked together. They're comfortable with each other. They know what they're doing. And I love... for me, what I call the background art, the back art, or however you want to refer to it, you've got these cool action, high, neat sequences going on, but you get the little side stuff, just a little, like the little look on someone's face, the chop, the kind of, look on their eyes as they're getting gouged to the neck, or the big background sequences of the cityscape scenery as Bruce is swinging, from one point to another point, and you get the fluid motion of the bat going through as you get this active streak beneath him. There's some really some wonderful art sequences and some just little subtle stuff that I picked up on second and third read through that I was like, oh, I didn't notice that before. Cool.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's certain things that there's a lot of depth to the artwork that's presented here. I like the motorcycle chase with Batman on the Line, where he used the buildings and the sense that the road doesn't have a straight flow, but he can move in a way that vehicles can't with the line, taking advantage of weight and motion and velocity to get himself in a position where he's taking down people speeding around on motorcycles, which are very fast and very agile in the way that they can kind of zip in and out of certain areas. But this is Batman, who is an expert at using weight and buildings and velocity of the body to overtake. And particularly things like, ropes and weight shifts and things like that. I love the way that whole sequence played out. And again, you were talking about non-traditional panels, how you have panels that are telling a story of the various stages of them coming off that vehicle. Yeah. That was cool.
Well, and again, it shows just Batman is Batman. Because he's able to know the city like the back of his hand. He knows where they're going to go, so he knows how to cut them off. He knows, again, with that beautiful line where he knocks people down, and just, I love, again, really beautiful art sequences of an action and very little dialogue, throughout that. All we got was a, I don't want to die, relax, and a, sound. I was like, again, let the artwork tell the story, do some really cool stuff. But then as we have this neat sequence of Bruce, we got some cool background stuff. If you look carefully on the pole, you'll see there's this missing child report. It's probably one of the missing kids that Bruce just rescued. And I love the fact that they have that on the pole right there, right by his foot. Something I didn't notice first time through because I was busy looking at all the bike action sequences. But when I go back through and I read a couple times, I see little stuff like that. And it's things like that make me appreciate what we're getting out of this artwork, what we're getting out of this art style, what we're getting from this team. So I'm like, man, I'm really excited for Detective Comics. What am I going to get next issue? What am I going to get down the line?
Do you think they're teasing us with potential Robins with Elena and Annie and that whole storyline and where it goes? Like, really making us think of some people that could potentially be a new Robin or a new sidekick, so to speak?
Oh, definitely. And anytime they introduce a younger person who's got athletic abilities, first thought that pops in my head is, "Oh, could this be a new Robin?" Hey, and especially if you get rid of like a parental figure, Bruce ends up being a foster type father. Well, when he kind of takes somebody in, what happens next. Usually they end up putting on some type of costume and doing some type of cool stuff with Bruce. Do I think it's going to happen? No. I don't know. Again, I don't know where they're going with this, and I'm excited to see where it goes. And I love the fact they're taking time and they're introducing new characters. They're giving us, again, you have to expand out the Bat universe. You have to expand out the Bruce Wayne universe.
I like that whatever they're going to do, they're giving us time to get to know the universe with Bruce in it right now without Robin. And whatever they end up deciding, they're giving us a chance to get to know some of these characters in a way that we're thinking about potential candidates one way or the other. Whether it's all a red herring or one of them might actually become that character, is irrelevant to me. I'm enjoying this ride so much. And I like that I didn't see in this issue, like when I first saw her, I wasn't thinking to myself potential Robin until it got to a certain point. Then when you reread the issue, it reads very differently.
Well, the fact that she's the Eagle, her nickname is the Eagle, Annie the Eagle. So once again, keeping with a bird theme for the sidekick. We've already seen in the sneak peek to Batman Eternal Bluebird. You've got Red Robin, you've got the Eagle, you've got Bluebird. There's a lot of different things they could go with, for a sidekick, or even not necessarily a sidekick, maybe someone who rolls with Bruce for a little while, and is part of the team Batman.
Yeah, Batman and the Chartreuse Cockatoo is something that I'm looking for. You're right, there is an interesting bird theme that seems to be following a bat. But
yeah.
I really loved seeing the motorcycle sequences with the tricks and all that. I am always amazed when an artist and an artistic team is able to evoke emotion. I mean, the sense of motion, not emotion, motion, something moving at a high speed, while at the same time you're mentioning the foreground and the background. A lot of that is going on in the background. You see some of her tricks in the far distance, whereas the main conversation is between Bruce and the mother. At the end when they're shaking hands and having that moment, she has finished her track meet. And you see that, and it's almost, you have to wonder if they're foreshadowing there where she stops off and the two of them are shaking hands and she's looking on.
Yeah. Well, again, it's a neat look on what she's wearing while biking. Come on, tell me, Golden Eagle, or, Golden Eagle, because she was the Eagle with that costume. You can already kind of see, and plus you can kind of see a little bit of Robin look to it with the green and the gold. We'll just replace that gold with red, and we've kind of got a Robin costume. And again, we've seen sequences where Bruce is working on the motorcycle that Damian, loved. Well, we now have a female who knows how to really ride a motorcycle. And the motorcycle was, traditional Robin, Nightwing used it, Robin used it. There's been this tradition laid down that Robins have used the motorcycle while Batman has the car. They're laying some, are these just, teasers and not something happened? I don't know. But again, I say probably she's not going to be a Robin, but you know what? Again, I'd be okay with it if we get these cool stories that are laying out. If we get this story that leads up to it and just it's part of the story and it makes sense. I don't know where it's going to go, but I'm definitely locked in after this one issue to see where this team takes this story, where this team takes this character and these characters.
Yeah, I had this premonition. I'm good friends with Johnny, and I started thinking to myself, maybe just because Johnny's a little self-destructive, that maybe my hanging out with Johnny is enabling him. So I normally I stick with my friends through thick and thin. But I just got this feeling that maybe sticking with Johnny's a little dangerous.
You think?
I don't know what it is. It's there used to be like 7 or 8 of us, and everyone vanished. And it seemed to be. It's strangely enough, it seemed to be after Johnny had some kind of problem.
You know what? You gotta love the Gotham City you have a character called the Squid. Mm-hmm. And of course he's going to have a giant squid. And of course he's going to feed people to that giant squid. Any other comic, you would maybe question it. But because it's Gotham, you're okay with it. And the fact that with the art sequence, the page right before we see this giant, squid that's, devouring, yet another person, you can see in the cityscape, they're at the aquarium. So this is probably the old aquarium that has been long since shut down because of budget cuts and whatnot. So that's why there's this giant take. Maybe that's where they got the squid. Maybe the squid is from somewhere else. I don't know yet. But again, it's Gotham. It makes sense. And I like the fact that we have this, again, another little bit quirky, a little bit, his own type of personality, his own style to him. So you need to have these type of villains here. You need to have this rogues gallery.
The sequence in the cave with the bike and what Bruce is doing, Another one, we talked before about how Peter Tomasi and team were evoking emotion. Really, this was a very heartwarming moment, but because it's Batman, that's not all that's going on.
Yeah.
You see that foot burning, I'm like, oh, this is not going to be good. I did not see that it was going to be Elena.
Yeah.
But the two of them partnering up together, trying to make a change and make things a little bit better, and knowing that that's going to lead her into a potential situation. Now, she's dead, right?
I don't know how she can survive that. But again, maybe she's not completely dead because the body's not completely incinerated, but she's...
I took it that she was dead, so I mean,
I kind of took it as that as well, because I took it that the daughter would come live with Bruce, and there would be, that would be the connection of why and how she could potentially become a Robin and whatnot. But things don't look good for Elena. It's not looking right for her, because she looks a little crispy right now, and hopefully I'm hoping that, because it's Bruce and because he's got JLA connections, he can help her and she's not completely dead, but it ain't looking good for her.
No. She's a charcoal briquette by the end of this.
Yeah.
I want to know what happened to her. It's one of those stories that has me immediately interested. They did a really, really strong job with this issue. It's hard to jump on a book and tell enough to really make you believe in what they're doing with the title, and they did a good job with this first issue.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that they just, with that bike sequence again, I love the fact that Titus is sitting right there. Yeah, and again, just with what we saw in Batman, and Aquaman, Titus is Damian's, dog. It's his compadre. It's his compadre, and so this is Damian's bike, so Titus is there. But also, Titus is following Bruce around because he can sense Bruce needs him there, and I love the fact that you get this connection again, and he's still around. So he's actually, it's funny because you mentioned how you want to see Bruce and Titus. It's part of me wishes they could actually go into Titus's brain and we can actually see what he's thinking and just have an issue from his point of view. But I don't know. Again, I don't have the the creative skills to actually create something that would be good. But that's something I think would be a kind of a neat issue where, even if they do completely silent, where it's just the dog and just the dog reaction with humans and people and just that type of story, I think that would be a really cool, powerful piece.
See, I think you're selling yourself short. I think you could easily think like a dog.
Actually, that's kind of insulting dogs, I think. Right now, there are dog lovers saying, no, Jim can't think like a dog. Dogs are noble animals.
Great book. Another great issue. Batman number 29?
Well, yeah. Our next discussion will be on Batman number 29. The writer is Scott Snyder, with Greg Capula on pencils, Danny Miki on inks, with FCO Placencia on colorist, Steve Wan's letterer, Katie Kubert on editor, with Mark Doyle as group editor, Capula, Miki, and Placencia on covers, with a Robot Chicken variant cover by RC Studios, and of course Batman was created by Bob Kane.
Yeah, speaking of Robot Chicken, before we go into this, did you watch the villain special, the kickoff of this season? Do you watch Robot Chicken at all?
I don't really watch Robot Chicken. I'll catch bits and pieces when someone says, "Oh, you got to look at, you got to see this," and then I'll hop on the internet and find it or whatnot.
They did a second DC Comics special that was the kickoff to this season that just aired, and it was villain focused. So it was all the DC villains getting together. They did spoofs on the Legion of Doom, but they also did spoofs, coincidentally enough, on our talk about characters coming back to life.
Really?
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. So it's well worth watching. I really enjoy. I'm a big fan of Robot Chicken anyway, but the DC stuff they've done over the years on the show, a lot of winks and nods to DC, and including direct characters from DC. So it's great to just have the special directly focused on that. And Jeff Johns was one of the writers on it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so it's well worth watching if you didn't see it. It's if you're not a regular watcher of that show and you missed it. I'm shouting it out to you and anybody listening. It was really a lot of fun. So, we're talking about Batman Zero Year. A long-form story really getting into the events that built to this. I like this story so much. I'm playing the game right now, Batman Blackgate. It was the Batman Arkham Origins game that came out, the new one in this. It was like the prequel. Well, they did a handheld version of it that was for the 3DS and the PlayStation Vita. Well, they released what's called an HD version now, which is meant for computers and the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, that you can play that game now full screen, on the computer and, the game systems. Well, one of the costumes, if you link it to your Warner Brothers account, is the Zero Year costume. I could not wait to jump on playing the game in this costume because it takes place early in Batman's career. So I feel like I'm playing an episode of Zero Year. It's really incredible to be reading this and playing that game right now. It's really cool. So it's kind of a fun little tie-in for that. I like when they do that. Whether you're a gamer or not and you play those type of things or not, I like that there's multimedia versions of Batman available. I like that there is acknowledgement of the comic book universe, and that we as fans who do play these products would like to have access to costumes, not just from the current story arc, but from classic story arcs. In the game, some of the pickups and collectibles are classic Batman costumes you can put together. But I love that right out of the way, I was able to unlock my Zero Year costume and play through the game in that.
Oh, cool.
For me, the moments where we see Bruce with his parents, and we always see Dad more than Mom. I want to, it's funny. I would like to see more, at some point in time, a little bit more focus on Mom to get to know her a little better again. We see those moments in Batman comics throughout his history, but there's always seems to be more of a focus on Thomas Wayne, the father, the father and son relationship. And I get that. So it's not a knock on what they do with him, because I love these sequences. So that's the point that's driving this. I just kept saying to myself, like, wow, I'd really like to read more about the mom as well, to see, what that relationship was like and how it drives and influences Batman's sense of what has happened to him.
Yeah, I'd like to get because this sequences, again, these are just this wonderful family moments between, between the Waynes. It was like, oh man, and you know where it's about to go. You know how the story ends. It always tugs at the heartstrings still. When we get these moments, and I agree with you, these are great sequences, but there's always just that, oh man, that poor kid. Because even though we've seen stuff like this multiple times, it still always gets me, especially when it's done correctly. You get this great father-son relationship where, they could have very easily, Thomas Wayne with, a lot of times with a lot of the rich and the powerful, they're a little bit distant. They're not that open and warm and wonderful type of parenting, but you see these two great parents with their kid, and it always makes me wonder, what if? What if Thomas and Martha Wayne hadn't died that night? What if they had been there for Bruce and he'd grown up a nurturing, loving household? How different would his life be? How different would Gotham be if Bruce's parents had lived? Would he still have become Batman? Would he have been a different type of Batman? Would it be everything completely, changed around? How would his life be different? And that's always these, especially sequences like this, that just get me wondering that stuff.
Did it get you wondering if you should join the Gotham City Police Department? That poster, I was sitting there, and this is a compliment to what they did. It really shows you the kind of place that Gotham is when you see a poster like that, and you go, oh, they're obviously catering to a particular brand of quote unquote police officer that they were looking for there. Because thinking about the era that this is, and they're also trying to shy away from the goody goodies.
Yes.
It shows the era and the corruption that was going on in Gotham City at this time, because that's the opposite of making people feel comforted.
But also just because that's always the traditional image we get in the sequences whenever when Thomas and Martha are killed. So I love the fact that was part of the police poster. That was part of the wanted post, the advertising or recruiting poster that the police have. They have that similar image to what Bruce saw. And I thought that was a really cool artistic decision. And just, again, it is a neat part of just this backstory. And again, it makes me wonder how much of that is actually real. Because this is based off of Bruce's memories of that night.
Mm-hmm.
How much of that was actually Bruce remembering the guy killing him? How much was that actually the poster there?
And showing you subconsciously what his viewpoint is of currently of the police department. That's
right.
An interesting way of looking at that. Wow. I didn't take it that way, but now that you're saying that, I'm like, wow, that makes really deep psychological sense. That's cool. I honestly think you might be spot on with that. That's really cool. After that, when he busts out of that whole sequence and we see him in that costume, I really appreciate the evolution of this suit in this series. It's not something that we get to see very often. We're used to seeing different Bat outfits because he has them for different purposes. One to fight Mr. Freeze, for example, just as a case in point, the armor suit that we saw recently in Eternal. Those are purpose-filled suits versus being an evolution to what is the best suit for multi-purpose daily operation, that Batman has. We're used to him having like a Batman Prime suit, that would be his go-to when he's not using one of the special suits. And that's something I've really appreciated, that storytelling that's there. We talk about that with Superman's suit, with the suit of armor. That's happening here in this case as well. And the continued character development of Jim Gordon very early on, with his dealing with Nigma. This is a Gordon who I like that he's trying to deal with an overwhelming situation. He's trying to be a good guy. He's trying to work through the corruption that's going on here when you're constantly surrounded by it. How do you stay true to yourself in this world? That's one of the things that I think makes these characters remarkable. And also their morality, something that we can all learn from. That, you don't succumb just because people around you are all doing it. There comes a point in time where your beliefs and your code need to supersede the darkness around you. And I really admire that in this Zero Year in particular, where we're seeing these characters less confident. By now, I would be totally thinking that Jim Gordon should not waver in any way, shape, or form because he's Jim Gordon. He is that old, this old warhorse has got the fight in him that we saw earlier in Eternal. This is a guy, though, a few years earlier, is so green. He doesn't have the advantage of having a Batman that's been operating long enough to help with the tipping the scales, so to speak. I admire him even more when he isn't as confident, but yet he's still sticking to who he is and trying to find a way to keep that morality. He's in my mind, a tried and true young police officer who's in it for the right reasons. And that's what I've always admired about the character, and I like seeing him in this story for that reason. It's as much a 0 year storytelling for him as it is for Bruce.
Yeah. Well, one of the definitions of character is, what do you do when nobody else is watching? Do you take the easy route? Do you do what you know is the right thing to do? It's, 3 o'clock in the morning, nobody's on the road, you're driving down the street and you come up to a red light. Do you stop at the red light, or do you just say, no one's around, I can roll to a rolling stop? Right there, it's not at the same level of police corruption, but is that same type of character and that same type of how you're going to do this, what are you going to do, even though everybody around you is on the take. Your boss, your commissioner, everybody is corrupt, but you're still the honest cop. And again, as I've said, in real life, in fiction, you have these noble police officers and you have these bad cops. You do have bad seeds out there, but you also have these people who are doing this to protect and serve. And I love the fact that, as we're, 0 year, as any of the Bat years throughout the evolution of the Bats, you always have this balance of good and bad on the force. And as Gordon gets stronger in position, you see a shift from the dark to the light. You see more honest cops. You see more decent police officers who are fighting for the city as opposed to fighting for themselves. So I love seeing these early years because we get these same visions of these corruption that we have in the present, but we see where it evolved from.
Yeah, yeah. And that's really an important thing with the character, to see where the corruption's evolved from, but how it evolves gradually away from that. Gotham never becomes a clean place in our case, unless you're in Gothopia. It really becomes a place that constantly they're fighting that corruption. Seeing this relationship with Bruce and Jim develop here, this is now Batman calling him because he's had a shift in his thinking about Gordon now that he knows more. There's something that you take a relationship that already means something to us and somehow make it mean more when you find ways to retell the story with a depth that matters. They've done it here. This relationship matters even more because of that. And that's, again, not diminishing anything that's come in the past, because so many writers have touched this, but seeing it at its origin and how it developed, and the corruption that Jim Gordon was being faced with, and Bruce's misunderstanding of what really was going on with Gordon at those times, and realizing that, hey, I was wrong on a certain level on what I thought about this guy, and maybe he's an ally that I need. Maybe I need to listen to him a bit the way I need to listen to Alfred more. And this is really defining Bruce's way of operating. We know him to be the loner. He prefers to be the loner. But we also know that for as much as he protests, he's at his best when he's trusting those that truly can be trusted in a corrupted world. And that is the powerful message in this.
Yeah, such a cool story with this whole, everything that played out with the 0 year, especially this evolution of this growth of this friendship, this trust, and just, the understanding, the camaraderie. We saw it, with some of the last issues where, where Gordon saved Bruce, saved Batman, but had his glasses off so he couldn't see who he was. And we get, just these different little bits where they're letting each other into their world, and I think that's something that I've really enjoyed from this 0 year. When year one came out, I loved the fact that we got that story, but there is something about this, how they're really going in depth, and you're really seeing just how and why these two trust each other. It's more than just Gordon recognizing the ends justify the means, that this is a vigilante who's getting the job done. He's getting to know who Batman is. He's getting to know the code of conduct and the code of honor. And same goes for Bruce to Gordon. It's not just about having someone in the police department that is on his side. It's about somebody who's good and true and honest in the position. And, it's that partnership, it's that friendship, it's that mutual respect. I love seeing this has been something from these, it's great stories being told, but I do really enjoy seeing that play out.
The bat blip, sir? Really? I loved that sequence. Work with what you have, that whole idea. Batman's got a little bit of a smirk on his face. I like a Batman that's not afraid to smile a bit at the right times. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, dark and brooding, he's cool. I mean, that's Batman. But you've got to also have the other side of him. And it works so well. I love Batman Begins. One of the things I love about Batman Begins is the interplay between Alfred and Bruce. Those are the moments where you recognize that there is a guy under the cape and cowl. There is that Bruce Wayne. And those sequences are really, really important to me. Because they shift back very, very quickly to the gripping his teeth in rage. Then send your prayers to Jim Gordon. Because he's going to, fly and try to solve the riddle. This really has done an amazing job on the Riddler and making him like an intellectual threat. Because a lot of times he gets a little too cartoony with the riddles. He's diminished. He kind of doesn't have this sense of, wow, that phobia becomes a Achilles heel, so to speak. Here, it is actually a major feather in his cap, because the riddles are so deadly, so dangerous, that if you don't solve them on time, or if you misunderstand a meaning or a perception, or, especially if a riddle could have a double meaning, you put yourself in a real bit of danger with this guy. And boy, do they show that here.
Oh God, yeah. Again, I think last time we talked about Zero Year, we talked about how we liked the fact that it was the Riddler, in this story. And again, he is that great Batman villain where it is the intelligence. It is, Bruce isn't just about physically beating up people. He is the great detective. Well, to have a great detective, you need to have someone of equal mindset, of equal intelligence to go up against him. It's one of the reasons why Ra's al Ghul is such a great adversary for him, because he does have that level of strategery that equals Bruce. So I love seeing the intelligent Batman on top of the physical Batman, on top of the cool toys, on top of everything that makes, on top of the Gordon relationship, on top of all the Alfred relationship, everything that makes Batman really cool and neat, we're getting in this story. We're getting the birth and the evolution of it. Plus, we're getting some beautiful artwork in here. This is, there's been some moments where you just sit there and go, oh, that is so cool. That is just so awesome.
Yeah. There's something to that I think is really, really cool. The art styling there. The whole weather and this sense of danger from that. Bruce is on a race against time. He needs to get to where the Riddler is running the whole show before it's too late. It's to the point where he's risking... I'm not scared of heights, so to speak. I'm also not, though, like diving out of airplanes and things. There comes a point where I've got a line. I can go to tall buildings and look down and stuff, and I'm okay. But, the idea of what he's doing here, you make a mistake here, you're done. Because this isn't a Bruce that has an Aquaman to catch him from the water.
Yeah, and this isn't a Bruce who has, like, wings or anything that he can pop or a parachute. The gun reaches 50 feet, the balloon is 70 feet away. And the wind's mostly at my back. Wind? It's a storm. I said mostly.
The nod and the wink to when the Frank Miller, Lynn Varley work and all that kind of stuff, when he jumps and you see that lightning and you see the silhouette, I thought was really terrific. Then the battle that occurs on that, there was really the sense of me, I'm so glad you could make it. And you see the two of them really battling for the opportunity to either let Gotham fall or to somehow try to save it. And you really get this feeling this is where Batman's going to win. He's going to defeat this guy, and he's going to win. Forgetting that his battle really isn't with the creature that's on the device. It's with the mental power that is trying to, when Gordon shows up, take down Nigma.
Yeah. And again, really cool just Nigma moments. The fact that he's sitting there is got that massive boulder being held up by a string, but it's, again, with all the different pulley system and just the counterbalance and the weight and whatnot. And, again, you could sit there and say, oh, that's not realistic. But to be honest, I'm looking at it, and in my mind, I'm like, what, I can see that working that way. I can see this going through. And the fact that the little notch is slowly slipping and he has a time for when, right as Gordon's right there, when the boulder drops on him. I thought that, again, was some really cool Riddler stuff.
This coyote would have caught the Roadrunner.
Oh, definite.
I love that at the end. Oh, wait, now I remember what I tied that string there for. It was a great sequence. Some of these creatures, like, I was a big fan of Man-Bat growing up, so when you see people injecting themselves with serums, I totally understand the concept of scientific curiosity, and you put yourself into your life's work of making this discovery that's going to put you on the map. This thing that might cure or help people to lead a better life, the thing that's going to immortalize you, because this is your chosen path. You study for years, and the work matters more to you than your own self. But even so, the things that they inject themselves with in the Bat books and what it does to them, I mean, whoa.
This is one thing that's one of the reasons I would never live in Gotham is because of the super freaky stuff that happens in Gotham. This, again, I could understand the obsession and the search for power and whatnot, but man, even I wouldn't go crazy with this stuff and want to, just Just the level of pain, the level of freakiness that they're going through. And again, in a comic book, I'm okay with it. In a Batman comic book, it makes sense.
I got a phone call at my house today for you. I thought it was very strange. It was from Gotham City Human Resources, and they were looking for a research assistant. and I said, boy, it was double the pay of what you're making right now. So I was really thinking of you, and great benefits.
Yeah, Gotham, I wouldn't live in there because of the freaks. Metropolis, I wouldn't live in there because the city seems to usually get destroyed every couple months. So I think those are the two big cities I will avoid in the DC universe. I'm going to stick with Cleveland, to be honest. If I was in the DC universe, I'd stick to Cleveland because nothing happens in Cleveland in the universe. It's always safe, sound, nothing crazy, no big invasions and or monsters and freaky deaky creatures.
It's further proof that Cleveland has its greatest hero in Sir Thomas of Cleveland.
Yes.
Nemesis does not get enough credit for the work that he's done here. You don't see in comics a lot of trouble and riffraff going on in Cleveland. And it's just because when you've got the best hero.
Yep.
Where do you go? Sir Thomas of Cleveland. It's the greatest thing in the world.
We still bring him up.
As you should. He's the greatest here. Wait, do you hear of any riffraff in Cleveland? We don't have this kind of stuff going on. You don't need to go up and, Bridgeman doesn't need to go jump up on a blimp. You don't have to need to do any of that because why? Sir Thomas of Cleveland has everything under control.
Yep.
I love the action sequences in this. The sense of intensity with that jammer. You know that the water's flying all over the place. And, the idea of, just getting a hold of that jammer, trying to stop that. And I liked that Bruce scrambling for the jammer, it didn't work.
Yeah.
He missed it. Again, showing us it's a young Batman. But even if it was a veteran Batman, fighting a creature like this and it not going Bruce's way, I would have been okay with it. But there was something to it more because this is a young Bruce. And that part really, really stuck with me on this.
Well, and you see in that really cool sequence, that lightning sequence that was the throwback to the Miller, you can see the one hand he's got the gun, but in the other hand he's got the jammer. And our current Bruce would have had some type of hookup or pouch or something for that jammer, so it would be locked in his belt until he needed it, instead of having to hold on to it in his hand and fight this creature with only one hand. Again, it shows the experience of Batman now. He learns from the mistakes. He learns from, the importance of, making sure, you go to your equipment when you need it. You don't have it early. You don't have it late. You have it at the right time.
I like they pulled something out of his belt and he's like, this is my last ditch chance and I don't know if this is going to work or not. Pleading, praying. Please be enough. Leading that back to this whole sequence of events in the fight where, he's trying to tell you, Carl, the city, you and I can duke it out all we want to. You can take me down, do whatever you want, but, there's millions of people who are going to be affected by what you're doing down here. And that leading to the explosion that was just, ugh. I'm not injecting myself with anything that when an explosion happens, I come back and, no, it's just no.
Yeah, he's healing, but in a very freaky deaky sort of way. So it's, I wouldn't want to live like that. And can this guy really die? Because when he hits, when he crashes, and when he explodes, it's the end there looks like he does pretty explodey. Kind of his body finally just completely gives out, and he blows up pretty good. But it's still, man, again, creep factor, freaky deaky factor that is Gotham. That does, again, this makes sense for a Gotham villain. This makes sense for a Gotham situation just because it's a holy crud type of scenario.
The riddle kicks in and we start to see what's really happening here, where, it leads to flooding in the city and just complete destruction. The retaining walls. You got to question what kind of, and that becomes the ego of Nigma. It's really about making a mark for him. We talked about earlier about scientists wanting to make their mark in Gotham. Well, you've got Edward Nigma who wants to make a mark and wants everyone to remember, the man who basically cleansed Gotham, for lack of a better term. And I'm not saying that his ideas are altruistic. They aren't. But, it's really kind of a, war washed it away is probably a better terminology for it. Wow.
Yeah, you sit there and you see just in reality, we've seen the tsunamis, we've seen all these storms, all these, just this destructive nature of water, and just how, especially just the water unchecked, and you get this rushing through, and even the sequences with the city flooded, and just the amount of destruction and devastation that's going on, and that's still coming down the line. This is just the first phase of the death and destruction. I love just that kind of that sense of where Bruce is just like, it's my fault. I saw it wrong. You hear me? Where he's admitting, we're all at fault. We messed up on this one. And I love, again, this is the growth and evolution of the Bat. This is part of his obsession with the understanding and seeing the full picture and being ready for everything. This is some really cool, incredible stuff. And on top of it, there's just going to be this massive body count. And again, adding to the guilt, adding to the feelings, adding to just that sorrow, and just the resolving of the Bat that he can never let something like this happen again. Wow.
Avoiding the sense of helplessness, because we see that in his flashback sequences, that they're directly relating to what he's going through in the Cape and Cowl right now. It's this sense of helplessness. I can't have that again. I need to be prepared for anything, and I need to study up and make sure that I analyze people, places, situations, so that I can try to counter anything that could possibly happen. This is the Batman that carries around the Green Lantern ring. And the kryptonite ring, I should say.
Yeah.
The kryptonite ring for the purpose of taking down Superman. This leads to that, I should say. I can't let myself fall victim again to a situation where I could have done something ahead of time. I could have taken the call. I could have done this. I could have done that. If I prepared this, none of this would have happened. It's my fault. Gordon's comeback of, it's all of our fault. We're all at fault. It's really kind of talking about, I think, the corruption in Gotham, maybe not standing up sooner to the situation that was there. I don't know. Is that the way you were taking some of that? How did you take that?
Yeah, it's part of it is, because Gordon knows that if things had been better and different on the Gotham PD, this wouldn't have happened. The fact that Nigma was able to get so close and get so entrenched in with it was because of part of the corruption and because of that. But also I took it as part of it being he doesn't want Batman to take all the responsibility. Uh-huh. Again, it's that he's recognizing that, Batman is, feels he messed up, feels it's his fault. And it's kind of that, again, reaching out to his friend and that person that he knows is a good person, say, no, it's not on you. This is on all of us. Kind of that first step of, okay, it's on all of us. We have to work together. We have to fight through this together. You're not in this alone. And there's that whole, again, it's that leadership. It's that, it's that Gordon being Gordon. It's not going to let one person take the heat. We all have to burden this together because together we are stronger. And it's that type of mindset. I can see Gordon already thinking that way, planning for the reconstruction, planning for, okay, round one's Nigma. Let's finish him. This fight isn't over yet.
Yeah, amen. Absolutely agreed. Go ahead.
I was going to just one quick comment. Again, we've been talking about the art sequences and all that, but the actual scenes where they're showing the parents dying, and you get the blood splatter, the red of, when, Thomas goes out, but just that sequence with Martha, because you're seeing it from Bruce's eyes, and it's the flash is behind her head, so it's kind of like a little bit of a halo, and she just got cracked in the back of the head, so that's her kill shot, and you get the little shell casing flying up. I just absolutely loved how that was done. Again, that beautiful, gruesome horror that just shows this, and again, knowing that this is just this little boy watching his parents get slaughtered like this, added to, again, a story and something we've seen in the past comics, but it does bring home even more. Just again, tugs at the emotional heartstring, tugs at the, oh man, that poor kid. No wonder he got so messed in the head. This would drive anyone to be a little bit, pardon the pun, but be a little batty.
You should be ashamed of yourself. That shows a complete lack of strategery.
I think we have just witnessed history.
Uh-huh.
You just used the word strategery in an actual sentence,
That's
and not saying strategery is stupid.
That's because somebody's got to use it properly. Oof. What a great story. It's just a really great book. This is something that's been great. I mean, when we originally planned this, you and I were planning to talk about Batman and Aquaman, or Batman and Robin, for lack of a better term. And just really kind of comparing the two books and not really realizing the impact, the new Detective Comics team would have, the Batman Eternal would have. It's really a great time to be a Batman fan. They've got some rich Batman literature out there that's really being developed in these books. And each, 4 different books, 4 very unique experiences with different lenses into Batman's world. It's really, really just a fascinating time to be a Batman fan.
Oh God, yeah. This has been, it's funny, as I said, I'm a Superman guy, but I'm such a Batman fan right now that it's, if I had to pick between the two of them, how can you go against Batman right now? Just because this is a good time to be a DC fan, this is a great time to be a Batman fan.
Yeah, terrific stuff.
A scarlet costume ejects from his ring, and in a blur of motion, police scientist Barry Allen becomes the Flash.
Hi, Sean. Hi, Jim. This is Brandon calling out New Orleans again. I'm calling tonight to actually, I know you guys have talked about it a couple of times. Yeah, I just had to talk about it again tonight. I just got to finally catch up on Arrow again, and I watched the Suicide Squad episode. And man, oh man, am I loving the universe these guys are now creating in Arrow. I mean, yeah, I've called in a couple of times about the show. I know you like it a lot. You enjoy it. And, I really, really enjoyed the first season and how self-contained it really was. And, they had hints and nods to, the bigger DC universe out there, but that's all it kind of was hints and nods to the bigger DC universe. That I think they mentioned Ted Cord in an episode, and there was, a couple of things like that. Cord Industries actually is what it was. And, little nods and wings like that all over the place. But this year, like the building of the universe, similar to kind of what they did, well, not what they did, what Marvel did in the movie universe. Arrow's doing it in the TV universe. I know you guys had that episode, like I said, a couple of weeks back. I'm just catching up again on all the episodes. And, I know you guys were talking about Arrow and DC and could the movie universe and the TV universe be linked, and could they not? And, I'm up for anything, but honestly, I think if you had to ask me, I'd love to see Stephen Amell in a Justice League movie as Green Arrow. I think he's actually that great to pull it off. But part of me just wants this, what's going on TV right now, to remain its own deal, because, the structure and the storytelling that you get to tell with TV and, a TV series and how long it is, that long form storytelling. I love it. And, in Arrow, you can see that it's paying off. You talked about the Deathstroke mask and the nod to, Ollie taking his eye out, being there, right there in the beginning of the series. And now here we are, 20-something episodes in the first season, 16 or so in this season so far, and now we're finally starting to get some of that payoff, and it's just amazing. And now to really talk about it, the Suicide Squad, they introduced Barry, and, that was cool. I got to say, I love this guy that they got to be Barry, Gus. I can't think of his last name at the moment, but man, I can see why they went ahead and, knocked off the backdoor pilot from Arrow and just went ahead and said, let's give this guy his own his own show. Because if the producers are, saw what I saw in the first 5 minutes of the show, the kid's got charisma. He's got the Barry Allen personality nailed. Like there's something about that guy. And hopefully, the Flash series that they're working on turn out to be really good. I saw the costume. Looks good. I got no complaints at all actually about it. It's a still shot. You can't get much from a couple of still shots, but for what I expect for a TV show, I mean, that costume looks amazing. And so, but anyway, getting off tangent there. They bring in the Suicide Squad this episode, of course, because Diggle has to go and work with his this girl he's been seeing, of course, on the show, and they have to go and take out a little mission for who else but Amanda Waller, and we get to see just the awesomeness that is Bronze Tiger, Deadshot. I love what they're doing with Deadshot in the show. Making him a reoccurring. I know Bronze Tiger's been on there a couple of times. But making Deadshot that reoccurring character in the relationship they're building with him and Diggle, and how it went from the hatred to he killed his brother to really, I guess not an understanding, but truth was revealed, and Diggle really he got to see a part of Deadshot that we get to see reading the comics. We have these comics, Sinister Six, Suicide Squad, all of that stuff. Where we really delve into the villain psyche, and you get to see that some of these villains aren't all bad, especially the New 52, the backstory that they gave Deadshot with his parents getting a stray bullet and him vowing to never miss, that's some good stuff. And that's a real motivating factor as to why he would become such a great marksman. And in the show, they hinted at him having a daughter, and that's why he really stays away and does what he does, and it's all for his daughter. And I mean, it's just, you see Diggle, yet again, it's another layer that Diggle sees to this guy. The last time he saw him, he broke him out of a prison, and he got to see, hear the fact that Deadshot didn't necessarily take out his brother, didn't miss. His brother was a target or something like that. And so it wasn't really Deadshot's choice. It was whoever hired Deadshot. And so, Diggle really got to put that into play. And this man's not a ruthless killer. He's a mercenary. He's, he did it for the money. Is that good? No. But does that mean you should have that personal vengeance for him or for the person that brought it upon him? And that's, it's a deep, philosophical subject to delve into. But I love it. I love the building of it. I love the character that got to be Amanda Waller. She just seems very snooty, very uptight, very awesome. And she right off the bat when she's talking to Diggle kind of says, listen, I know how you're spending your nights. I know about you and Ollie Queen and what you guys are doing. And kind of angles that and brings Diggle in. And, it was a very cool episode. We had the exploding heads, of course, from the Suicide Squad with Amanda Waller. She's always got to be messing with some kind of crazy tech, putting in these criminals to make them do what she wants to do. And, it was really cool. The nod to Harley, who is one of my girlfriend's favorite characters. I wish we got to see more. I hope that was a tease to give us more, because, we've heard rumors of a Nightwing in the show, and we know I love Nightwing. I'm waiting for my live on-screen interpretation of Nightwing. I want it so bad, whatever it may be, TV show, movie, whatever the case may be. I want that Nightwing appearance. But anyway, to see Harley in there was just awesome. It really was. And my last little thoughts on the show is, the very end of it comes about, and you've got Amanda Waller in her little office at Argus or whatever you want to call it. And what happens? Ollie pulls a Batman, and he's there, waiting for Amanda, and he's talking to Amanda to want to get basically information on Deathstroke, because right now that's where Ollie's head is. It's all about Deathstroke, and what is Deathstroke going to do to him? What is it going to do to Sarah and his family? So it seems like it's an awesome show. And like you guys said a couple of times, for any of the people that didn't really appreciate the first season, because maybe it didn't give you as many winks and nods as you wanted to the DC universe. Maybe it wasn't comic booky enough. It's still not comic booky. It's got the Nolan-esque, style to it, but it is so great. And now we're getting these characters on screen that we've never gotten a chance to see before, or at least very minimal of. And it's just a great introduction to them. It's a great place to see them on the live screen. And I am so giddy about it and so happy that the show was renewed for another season. We're going to get a Flash show. Hopefully this is going to be good. It's an exciting time to be a DC fan. And I just wanted to call and boast about it. So, Sean and Jim, you guys take it easy. I'll talk to you next time.
I love his passion for that. I want to disagree with him slightly on one thing. When he's talking about Arrow and the idea of not bringing him to the big screen, I'm slightly going to disagree because I agree with his passion for protecting the show, because the show is very important to me the way it is to him. I don't want him to go to the movie and then have it derail the show. If it's going to do that, don't do it. That's where I want it contained. My feeling, though, is because you can't do the kind of character development you're doing on the Arrow TV show on the big screen with the depth that it is. He's a character that you can bring into the Justice League and make it all about his interaction with that team, and in no way, shape, or form derail what's going on in the television show. In between seasons or something like that. Where it's an event that's happening that he's a part of, and have him part of Justice League, because you're already building winks and nods to that with the Flash. If you're going to use this same Flash for the movie, if you're not, then everything that he's saying is true. I say that with the little caveat, and you might disagree with me, Jim, and he might as well, and I respect that, because I agree with him. The most important thing to me is that show, because week in, week out, it's everything he's gushing and geeking out about. It's incredible. I just think it's that good that character should be on the big screen. That's why I disagree, but I don't want to see it hurt the show. So that's kind of my take on it. Where are you?
Well, it's weird. I kind of jump back and forth a little bit.
Yeah.
There are times when I'll sit there and say, no, they should let's stick in the TV universe and not go big screen. But then I'm like, he'd be really cool on the big screen. This would be a really good Arrow story. This would be and so I'm like, I'm torn. Right now, I'm kind of, fixed at keeping this in just a TV universe and not taking the characters to the big screen. And the reason I'm fixed on this is because I want to keep this universe separate from the movie universe, because I want this universe as Batman. I want this universe as versus Superman in there. And I think if they did the crossover, they would never do that.
I honestly think you're never going to get that if they don't do the crossover. That's where I'm going to disagree with you. I think because of the fact that they don't want two Batman, they don't want two Superman. Here's what's not going to happen. If you don't have if you don't have this Green Arrow on big screen, we will not have Green Arrow in the Justice League. You will not have Superman and Batman on this show. But the Flash is the one exception.
See, here's the thing, though. I think if they keep this completely separate, they could technically get away with it. I don't think they will. But I think if they have Green Arrow movie, Green Arrow movie has to be connected to the current Superman movie. You can't have two Green Arrow movies.
No, I'm not talking about a Green Arrow movie. I'm talking about Green Arrow in the Justice League.
Right, but I'm talking a Justice League movie.
Right. You would have this Green Arrow in the Justice League movie, not a different Green Arrow.
Oh, okay.
In my opinion, if you... I don't see them doing two Green Arrows. I just don't.
Yeah, and that's why I'm like, keep this one TV, and and I don't know. It's weird because
let me ask you this: think of Man of Steel. We saw Man of Steel. Does this Green Arrow fit in the Man of Steel universe? Think of the tone of the movie, the way the story was told. Does he fit?
Oh yeah, this one could definitely fit into that universe.
Does Man of Steel fit into Arrow? Does Superman fit into Arrow? The way that he was told in that story. Would he feel odd to be in this? Like, if that Clark Kent showed up on Arrow, would he feel out of place?
Kind of.
Why? I'm curious about this. Why?
I don't know. I think it's the fact that, like, if that Clark Kent were to show up here, not that Superman, I would like to have this timeline showing that Green Arrow is happening before, like when Clark's on his journey, the Superman we got on the screen, when Clark was on his little journey, that Clark Kent here. But after the Superman here, it's, they would need to have a massive news story going on in the Arrow TV show showing what's going on with Superman.
Well, why couldn't it be that Clark Kent on the journey?
That's what I'm saying. They could do that.
Yeah.
But not that Superman.
But remember, I said Clark Kent. I didn't say Superman.
Oh, yeah, true. Sorry about that.
And I was thinking, would that Clark Kent make an appearance here? Now, and I mean, I specifically was saying that. I started off with Superman, though, so admittedly, the way I worded that probably threw things off. But, because I did start off with Superman. You're 100% correct. But to me, I was thinking Clark Kent making an appearance here. The way that Barry Allen did, if that makes sense. Because it wasn't the Flash who made an appearance here, it was Barry Allen. Now, could that lead to the Flash making an appearance in the future? Sure. I don't necessarily want to see Batman cameos, Superman cameos on the TV show for a lot of the reasons that Brandon's saying. I don't have a problem with this Arrow being in the Justice League in a way that takes place after this series.
Yes.
or as a side story from this series. I think more after this series, though, where we, kind of maybe make him older, or so. I don't know how to, if I'm making sense in what I'm saying. I think that this Green Arrow would work in the Justice League. I think he'd work in that world. I just don't necessarily want to see. I'm with you on this news stories. Except, would you have a problem with that being a news story? I guess on the Arrow show.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. They would need to have, before they did any introduction, before they showed Superman in this universe, they would have to have that giant, massive news story of what's going on.
See,
what I'm saying.
I guess I'm not as concerned with seeing Superman and Batman make guest appearances on this show, other than through news stories, like you're talking about.
Yeah, references mentioning of, looks like Gotham has their own vigilante now.
I think
I guess he's crazier than you. He dressed like, I'd like to see little comments made.
Yes,
about these people.
But that they're already doing that in Arrow. I guess what I'm saying is more and more, everything Brandon's talking about, I'm like nodding my head and going, yes, Brandon's right. It's the winks and nods to the greater universe, the references to other series, the reference to certain characters, creators' names on streets and things like that. They could easily do stories on the television that reference what's going on. They already do, news stories on this program about the larger world. Why not that? I think that would work. As a quick reference, I don't want to see, here's what I don't want. You've got Black Canary on this show, and it works fantastic because she's kind of in the Arrowverse. I'd have no problem with this Green Arrow and Black Canary being together in the Justice League, actually, to throw it that way. You've got appearances by the Suicide Squad. He's so right. What works here is this Suicide Squad's being developed on this show. You've had references to Ra's al Ghul. You've, and his family. Deathstroke. This Deathstroke as a villain in the Justice League movie, I'm fine with that. Matter of fact, if they recast him, they're insane. Well, I mean, could you seriously see them? I mean, if you're doing Justice League versus the Legion of Doom or whatever you want to call them, the Secret Society or whatever you want to call them, and you don't have this Deathstroke on there, I think you're missing an opportunity.
I would riot. I would lead the riot, man. Manu Bennett
versus Batman.
Yeah. Oh my God. He is just an absolutely perfect Slade Wilson as well as a perfect Deathstroke. He's got both of the character personas, both of those physical presences you need for that character. I absolutely just cheered when I first saw him when I saw he was Slade Wilson, because as I've said multiple times, he was on the Spartacus series where he played one of the main characters, Crixus, and the actress who plays Amanda Waller, Cynthia Adia Robinson, also was on Spartacus. And I got to see that actress really go from this shy, timid slave girl to this hardcore, heartbreaking, life-taking, killing machine. Her character grew and evolved and became a really cool fighting force. And you got to see some really cool actions and just some very, physical demanding character. And I was like, wow, that's, so again, I was like, that's some cool stuff there with, with that actress, and just seeing her just really go, all out. So her as Amanda Waller has me going, man, that's a great casting, because I've seen her be hardcore. I've seen her be tough. I've seen her be a killing machine. So for me, every time I watched that episode, and I've watched it a couple times now, just I kept cheering. I'm like, Crixus,
Manu Bennett versus Aquaman.
Oh, God.
Manu Bennett versus Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Him finding a way to take on Superman. I mean, these I'm not saying all of the Justice League versus him, although I'd watch that movie. But I would want to see, a team going up against him. Maybe this is the second Justice League film. I don't know. But you've got the casting right there. I mean, that would be perfect. The Amanda Waller you're throwing out there. Throw her on the big screen, too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not necessarily saying that they all have to be in the same film. As Justice League, if it isn't good enough that it's going to go to series, we got a huge problem. If it's going to go to a series of films, now you have opportunities to take some of these characters, and I don't know, why would you recast them? I look at Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, who I really, really enjoy. And one of the great things about him is his solo movies, but then his appearances in the X films. And, I'm excited for the next X-Men movie, because I really liked First Class, and I loved seeing that there was a cameo by him in there. But that cameo turning into, a wink and a nod to, his next movie leading to Days of the Future Past and stuff like that. I want to see that kind of stuff with this. And I think, whether Green Arrow is maybe just a cameo at the end of the first Justice League movie, leading to maybe him being a part of the team in the second Justice League movie. This series could be a precursor to him being in the third Justice League movie. I don't know. At some point in time, this Green Arrow could easily appear on that, and should easily appear on that team, and any of the cast that they've got here could as well. I think that's where I'm torn on it.
Yeah.
And here, this wouldn't be me being disappointed if he's not. I really feel that there would be no need to recast it. And if you don't do any acknowledgments, that's okay too. We can assume it takes place in the same universe. I would be happy with the only reference being a newscast, like you're mentioning, just letting us know that it's part of the same world.
Yeah, they did that. They could just with a simple news article about, oh my God, you see what happened in Metropolis? What's going on? Or just a reference to, the Bat, in Gotham. Just start having some references. You don't have to even have the direct connection until it's time on the screen or something.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And it really isn't disputing him, because I think what's driving this is I'm equally passionate for the way he's talking about.
Yeah.
His referencing about how everybody's been cast so great, Bronze Tiger, Deadshot, that whole Deadshot sequence, I was like, he was such a weasel in the beginning of this when he was first brought in, Deadshot. They made him cool as it went along. They really did a great job on the Suicide Squad episode of changing my perception of certain characters and adding some depth to them. Terrific writing on the show. And Diggle transferring from the TV show to now being in the comics. This Diggle being in there. Oh, I mean, we're going to be talking about that next episode. Oh, really just a terrific character. Good stuff.
Yep.
Okay, this is Jack, and I definitely have something to rage about. I just finished Detective. It's either Detective or Batman 28, which was the lead-in to Batman Eternal. And Stephanie Brown shows up at the end. That is excellent. I have been waiting for her to come back in the New 52. I'm loving the New 52, and Batgirl being Barbara Gordon is fantastic, and I have no problem with it whatsoever. But I have really missed Stephanie Brown. She is a great character, so I am loving the fact that she's back. Now I would like to see him bring back Wally West and Ryan Choi. I don't know what capacity. I mean, Wally West, to me, Barry is my Flash. But Wally should be there somewhere. He doesn't have to be Flash, but, I mean, other than making Wally Flash, where would you guys put him if you brought him back? And Ryan Choi, we don't even have an Atom. I mean, we have the villainous Atomica, but, I mean, Ray Palmer's not really the Atom. He was helping out Shade. How cool would it be to have Ray Palmer and Ryan Choi working together? I mean, I think they could do a lot with that. Are there any hero characters that you miss that haven't really shown up yet in the New 52, and how would you like to see them show up? I mean, would they be different than they were in the previous chronology? If so, I mean, I kind of would like to see Ryan Choi have the Atom powers again, but maybe work with Ray Palmer at Shade. Maybe that might be a cool way. But anyway, glad to have Stephanie Brown back, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Hawkman. I miss Hawkman in the New 52. They get going on him, and it just doesn't, it hasn't paid off yet. I'd like to see that happen. I love Hawkman. He's a great character. I really do. But, he throws out Wally West, and Wally West is coming. He's going to be in the new Flash series. So that's coming up. Not in the current Flash series, I should say. So he's going to be coming up, and I'm anxious to see what they do with Wally. Echo his opinion on Ryan Choi. Ideally, I would love the Ryan Choi that we got when Gail Simone was working on him, because I loved the whole school, the whole premise and everything like that, and it could very well lead to what he's talking about with him working with Ray Palmer. That would be fantastic here. I think the real reality is we need to have him on a team book in order for that to work. An Atom series, I would read it in an instant. I don't think you'd get a ton of readership on it, though. I'd love to see someone take a chance, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I would throw him on Justice League, as a, and I would do Ryan as opposed to Ray, and just have him be either somehow academically associated with, and have there be a connection, and have it be the reason why Ryan has Ray's technology is because this was one of his students or one of his associates or something. So there's a connection to him.
Yes, but
not. Have it be so it's a different Atom, because I did like him as the Atom, but you still have Ray in the wings, where you could have an issue where you have multiple Atoms, and there's a story behind why he's there helping out Ryan. And I would put him with the Justice League, let him be part of the team, and then if depending on the character, if it's popular, maybe go with his give him a shot at a solo series, or maybe a team-up type series where it's him and somebody else, or I don't know. You could do some interesting stuff with the character, especially if you take a new, think about the Ryan Choi and Hawkman teamed up together, because you always had Atom and Hawkman together.
Yeah.
You have Hawkman, and then you have Ryan, who's just, hey, how's it going, guys? The dynamic between the two of them, I think, would be some interesting storytelling.
I want that to be the title of the book, though. Ryan Choi and Hawkman. I would read that I really would read that in an instant. Yeah. I would actually, Atom and Hawkman as a series, I would read. That might be a good way to launch the characters, to put two of them together like that, and make it like a buddy cop series.
Yeah.
And touching on everything because what you're implying is the relationship would be interesting enough to carry the series. It'd actually be, I'm loving from Valiant right now, Quantum and Woody. And I'm not saying it should be slapstick like that, but Quantum and Woody it's a really fun series with two really well-developed characters, and it's unique. To do Quantum and Woody at DC wouldn't work the way that they're doing it over there. But what I'm saying is the characters sell themselves because of their relationship. And I think you could do a DC version of two characters like that the real premise is the relationship's interesting. It's actually probably closer to Archer and Armstrong from Valiant. Do that kind of series where, Hawkman's rich history comes in with the Atom science. And I don't know, I'd love to read it again. I just think that would be really fantastic. That would be a way to get the two characters over. I just think that would be... And you put them on adventures. Yeah. That some of them come from the science of Ryan Choi. And have Ray Palmer be the mentor, on a certain extent, where it's his technology that Ryan's using, but, he has his own scientific background because of the ties that you're talking about. I would read that in an instant. I really, really would. I think that would be a good book. I actually think that would be a better seller than either of them individually.
Yeah. I think that'd be a pretty cool story and pretty cool way to go. Now, with Wally, I'm hoping we get an adult Wally, not a young kid Wally.
It looks like it's going to be from the image that I saw, because he's the Flash in it. So I don't know what that means, but it looks like we're getting an adult Wally.
Oh, okay, cool. Because I thought that would be kind of a neat way to go with the character, where introduce him as an adult, introduce him as part of like a partner to the Flash before he gets any type of powers. And actually let us get to know Wally West before he becomes the Flash or before anything happens to him. Kind of like how you have the Batman-Gordon relationship, you could have the Wally West-Flash relationship. Then as time goes on, Wally West realizes, hey, Barry is the Flash. Holy crud, and the next thing you know, this lightning bolt, hey, Wally West is now the Flash. Or however the story... I would spend some time with us getting to know Wally West as a supporting character in the Flash book, and then let him come in.
Well, that's not what's happening.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, this is how, you asked how I would do it. This is what I would do.
Yeah, no. It was, it's going to be adult Wally as the Flash.
Yeah,
I wonder if it's going to be an alternate universe Wally or Wally from the future. I don't know. I'm very curious to see what it is. Let me flash back then. Does a cover image having Wally as the Flash mean that he is going to be the Flash?
No.
So I don't know. I will find out. I'm insanely interested in that. I'm just glad they're doing something with Wally. I think they've been very careful in their introduction of certain characters. I like what they did with Connor Hawke, over at Earth 2. Yeah. And I think that there's opportunities to do unique things with the characters between the different books that they have, the ones that people want to see. And I would be judicious on it. I miss DC Comics Presents. I liked that series a lot when they had it this time around.
Yeah, again, it was a good way for them to go with characters that wouldn't have their own title.
Yeah.
And couldn't support their own title, yeah.
So... and introducing character concepts to see which ones people might be interested in. You know what I wish had really taken off was the Freedom Fighters.
Yes.
Because I was really liking the minis. I thought they were really, really good, and I wanted to see those lead to an Uncle Sam series. And I'm sad that didn't happen.
Yeah, and I again, there's if it was up to us, there'd be 1,000 titles.
Well, see, there's certain titles I would love to see digital numbers on certain books. Only because I suspect there are certain titles that don't work as a paper title, but maybe have a digital audience. And I might be wrong on that. But we keep hearing that digital numbers are better than anyone realized. So I would love to see what those are like. I'm not a big numbers guy. I don't really care normally. But that, to me, is the part I'd be fascinated with. Are there titles that get canceled that had a digital audience? If you follow me on that one, I'd be curious to see if there's certain titles that maybe should, I'm not saying take them out of the comic shops. I don't mean it that way. It would be interesting to see if there's certain titles that just work better in that format. And I'd be just as curious to see if there's certain titles that don't seem to sell digitally, but sell extremely well on paper. It would be interesting to see if there's a separation between the paper crowd and the digital crowd as far as in certain preferences that show. I would be fascinated by that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Is there any other characters? He asked a really good question, and we didn't really go here. Are there any characters other than what he mentioned that you want to see from the old universe that we have not seen yet?
See, I'm pretty good with me. There's characters I'd like to see have a better situation and a little bit more return to prominence, but every character I'm like, I wish they'd do this. Hey, wow, we got this series. I'm like, hey, I wish they'd do a Lexing. Hey, we're in Lex. Hey, I wish of this. And so I'm getting some really cool stuff. So that's why I'm very happy with my reading and my pull lists and whatnot, because I think they're doing pretty good at throwing out the wide net and giving people a shot. I wish Blue Beetle was still around and still active. because that was, I really liked Jaime and just, what he was going through and just how it was the evolution of him and his relationship with the Scarab, etc. But again, they gave it the shot, they gave it some time, and it's now he's wherever he is.
Aqualad and Donna Troy, for me, the two I'd like to see. And I'm going to be with Donna Troy. I'm very careful to say that I wouldn't mind seeing Donna Troy on another Earth if we needed to, or in this one. And when it's time, I'd like to see that character again at some point. Aqualad in particular, though, either version, but more leaning towards the newer version, because I think he would work real well.
If I had to pick a version, I would go with the newer version. Mm-hmm. But right now, I'm of the mindset where I'm very happy with the Aquaman universe.
I'm thinking Teen Titans.
Yeah, well, but I'm thinking I don't need to have him in this universe right now, because I'm very happy with the way things are with that. But again, I'm not going to argue with you, say, oh, they shouldn't bring him in, because he is a cool character. And in Teen Titans, that would be a really neat dichotomy that he could bring to that title. So I'm not going to say no, but for me, it's not like, oh, I wish they had him in.
But he's a character I miss. I mean, that was the point of what he was saying. The character I miss.
I know.
See. And you don't have to agree with me on it. Those are two characters that I really enjoy, that I would like to see again in some capacity. But I am putting a caveat on it with it too. Like with Donna Troy, I mentioned Aqualad's kind of the same way. I'm not sure where. Like, I wouldn't mind necessarily Aqualad showing up on the other Earth, or Donna Troy showing up on the other Earth. To me, I would like to see either character appear when there's a good story to be told with where they belong in this, version of the New 52.
See, part of me would have Donna Troy be an Amazon, full-fledged, just one of the Amazons on Amazon Island, and as kind of like an additional ambassador into the world, or even part of the Amazons who were banished from the island. Because you have that whole group of Amazons who were kicked off of Paradise Island, who left Paradise Island and whatnot, however you want to look at it, one of those characters. So you still have her connection to Wonder Woman, but not how Wonder Girl was connected to,
They should put her on the moon. I don't know. It's a good movie. Guess it'd be Amazon Woman on the moon, but
yes.
I don't know that I have. I'm with you. I'm very satisfied right now with the characters they're introducing as they're gradually doing it. I don't want character introduction overload where people are thrown in for the sake of, hey, look who's here now, and then they're gone. It's Wally West is being introduced, and I'm pretty sure they're introducing him for the purpose of using him. That to me is more exciting than that. Hawkman and Adam, we were talking about that. The more you talked about Ryan Choi with Hawkman, I think that would be interesting. And you're right, with Ryan Choi, now you're taking an old concept and making it into something fresh. At the same time, I think you can throw Ray Palmer in there, and really do something rich with him that plays into his talents as a mentor, or as the scientist behind the scenes, which we've already seen established.
Yeah, because he's in the universe,
right?
But he's not in the universe. He's not, the Atom.
But maybe he doesn't need to be.
Right.
Maybe he can be the technology to it. I don't know. It'd be cool. It's good stuff. It's a good call.
This is Jack again. I just finished Batman Two-Face 28. And man, was that a great story. I've always loved the Two-Face character. My buddy's favorite character is Two-Face. And I'm a huge fan of the character myself. Well, the fact that Harvey knew that Bruce was Batman it just shows that there was a real deep connection between these two guys as friends. It would be like if Jim were running around as Bridgeman and then Scott not knowing. I mean, Dr. Norris not knowing it. Obviously Dr. Norris would recognize, Sean would recognize Jim as Bridgman, regardless of what the mask looked like, because you know him for so long. You know, the same thing. If Sean were running around in a Batman suit, you know, Jim would recognize him. So it makes sense that Harvey recognizes Bruce, you know, as Batman. And I thought that was just, that scene alone was worth the price of the book. But at the end of the book, it looks like Two-Face offs himself. I do not believe for 10 seconds that Two-Face is dead and is going to stay dead. That doesn't happen, and it shouldn't when the character is as good as Two-Face is. But here's my question. When he comes back, do you think, number one, do you think he shot himself in the head? And if he did shoot himself in the head, do you think when he comes back he will retain the memory that Bruce Wayne is Batman? And will he retain any of Harvey Dent's feeling for Commissioner Gordon or Bruce Wayne? Anyway, talk to you later.
First, I want to correct him on one thing. You and I are very unassuming with no distinct personality traits. We'd blend in any environment. I don't think we would know.
I would be like, I'm Bridgman and whatnot. That's him.
I know, yeah. We'd stick out like a sore thumb. We could be like completely encased in like a metallic suit, and about halfway through a conversation we realize it was us.
Yeah. First time Bridgman would say, hey, Norge, how's it going, eh?
That's funny. Yeah. Oof.
You know, here's the thing I was thinking with that. One, there's a lot of legitimate cases of people shooting themselves in the head or trying to shoot themselves in the head and not actually doing a fatal gunshot. And people live through it, whether the gun shifts or something. And I kind of took it that gunshot was either going to be the death of Harvey or the death of Two-Face.
We didn't see it, though.
Right.
My opinion, if it didn't happen on camera, you know, there's...
always got was the bang and a blood splatter.
Right.
But it wasn't even a large blood splatter. So it's... I don't know, part of me thinks that was maybe the death of Two-Face. Maybe that was Harvey putting a bullet in Two-Face, and if he comes back, maybe we'll have more Harvey Dent than Two-Face.
Or what if we have more Two-Face than Harvey Dent?
That also could be the case. I think that's, you know, could this be the end of the need for the coin flip? There's no longer two sides. There's only the one focus. There's only, you know...
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you think he died?
No. I 100% do not think that we've seen the death of Two-Face. I think we've seen maybe a shelving of him. Maybe a little while later we'll get him coming back again. But, hey, for all we know, we maybe see who the villain for Batman Eternal is.
Oh.
Maybe that's it, because he knows who Batman is. So maybe, you know, and he's got that deep intelligence and that deep understanding. And, again, great targeting of James Gordon. If it is Harvey Dent.
Wow. I wouldn't be surprised. But that actually is a very interesting theory that I don't really have any need or reason to dispute. I was thinking, you know, are they doing Hush as one of the possibilities? I'm not saying I'm even sold on it, but I like that idea. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that one. That's cool. Yeah. That'd be an interesting curveball. Oh,
God, yeah, that'd be kind of neat, you know. And even, you know, they could lead us on thinking that it's Hush, and then at the last second, when the bandage comes off, it's Harvey Dent, not Hush.
Sure.
You know, there's a lot of stuff they could do with this. And
could they make it Gilda?
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I really was kidding when I said that.
Yeah, I don't think she's...
That's funny.
How's it going, Jim? Sean, this is Brandon calling out of New Orleans. First off, I want to say I just got done listening to the anniversary show. Congratulations on 8 years of podcasting. I got to say, I jumped on board about 3 years ago, and you guys have pretty much been a tradition weekly in on my listening list since then. You know, over the past couple of months, I've had to catch up on some episodes, and I'm finally completely caught up, and I'm pretty much caught up on my comic reading. And so it's kind of funny because, you know, with your anniversary and, you know, the picking of the best you think and all of that stuff of the year, I now have a new problem. I'm going through my list, and I have to now concrete the books I'm going to read. My girl was awesome enough about 2 weeks back to give me a handsome gift to go to the comic book store and pretty much catch up on any book that I wanted to catch up on that wasn't Batman, because until this point, I'm a Batman junkie. Most of the books I had to catch up on were Justice League, Forever Evil, and my Batman titles. Well, I went to the comic book store and I decided, there was the whole run of Green Arrow, and I know you got to talk about Green Arrow this week, so I'm so excited because I'm completely caught up on the Outsiders. Man, oh man, that's some epic stuff going on over there. Jeff Lemire took over, and I started reading. I actually picked up the first 3 issues digitally from him, and I've been on board ever since. And great writing, great art. And I think the art has actually gotten so much better. It was in the beginning, it seemed a little off translating. I can't remember his name at the moment, but the style translating from iVampire to Green Arrow, he had to find his footing. And he found a perfect style with it now. I think the coloring, all of it, it's beautiful. The team is great over there. And the story, I mean, we're getting a great TV show. And it seems like in the comic book, we're getting the complete opposite. I was talking to my girl, and I mentioned, Green Arrow in the comic book is actually Ollie in the show. And Ollie in the comic book seems to be Green Arrow in the show. It's kind of, and it's a mirroring of stuff that's going on, but opposite. And I love it. It's good on both ends for completely different reasons. And that's why I'm enjoying what we're getting there. But caught up on that, great stuff. And then I caught up on some Green Lantern and Red Lantern. And man, oh man, Red Lantern. I'm sticking with Red Lantern. Amazing, amazing stuff going on in there with Supergirl, Guy. I was never a guy, a guy. Sounds weird to say. Until, Green Lantern Corps, Peter Tomasi, he got me with him. And then this Distraught in the Madness with the Red Lantern thing, it was awesome. I read the first couple of issues, and unfortunately, I skipped ahead because I couldn't catch up on back issues with it. I got right to I started with Green Lantern and Red Lantern at the Footbook issue, which was really, really good. And now I have a dilemma. I have to trim down my list. Out of those books, I can only choose 3. And the reason for it, and I'm flip-flopping on this one, is because Batman Eternal is coming out, and I just picked this one up. And man, oh man, does it seem like it's going to be some awesome stuff in that book. And there's kind of where my problem is. I think DC is pinning too much on Batman and Superman at this point. And I love it, and I love the stories that we get, and I'm going to continue buying them because they seem to be great stories. But it seems to be, like in the beginning, the New 52 was a grouping. You had your Young Justice titles, your Batman titles, Green Lantern titles, you had family books. And now it seems to be they're pinning their entire line on a couple of characters. And I'm not too sure how I feel about this, especially with Batman Eternal coming out weekly. Just for a reader like myself, I love to follow creators. I love to follow, characters as well. In fact, when I started getting back into comics, I had to choose between DC and Marvel, kind of. And I kept up with Spider-Man, but I decided, I'm a superhero enthusiast. I love comics. Kept my Walking Dead and Saga and those issues on the side. So I decided that if I'm going to read outside of one superhero franchise, I had to kind of choose one and maybe keep a character from the other one to keep my foot in the water of what was going on. And the reason I went with DC, especially 1, Batman was my guy, and 2, at the time, Marvel was doing and still is, the double shipping of Spider-Man, double shipping of X-Men. And it's a lot on a reader, even with, DCB service, which I love that's pretty much how I get my books until recently when I had to, hold off for a little bit. But, even with that service, a weekly title becomes a pretty big burden, especially when you have a universe full of titles for that character that are already so awesome. I mean, Batman is my best title. I love it. Without a doubt, it is the book I read every week when it comes out. Batman and Robin or Aquaman or whatever it is incredible. Detective has been going great. So, you have these great books, and then you have the outside, like, Nightwing, which we don't know what's going to happen, and Batgirl. But my question is, do you think they're pinning too much on these characters, and maybe they should widen their universe a little and try and, get people connected with the other characters more again? And how could they do that? Because I enjoy the world and I love it, and that's why I stayed with it, so that I could read more titles. But if I stick with Batman Eternal, I can only stick with one of like 4 other titles because of the influx of story that's coming in. And I don't know how long it's going to go on because I don't keep up with solicitations and stuff like that. But, it's a pretty big burden, even though it would be awesome story and I'm excited for it. Do you think they should go with more of a slow burn so people can enjoy more of the world? Or do you think this is a good way to do it? Anyway, I love the show, guys. I'm glad to finally be caught up on everything. And keep up the great work, because I got to tell you, for the last 3 years, you guys have been at the top of my listening list. I love listening to you every week. Definitely feel like I'm part of the community. And keep up the good work. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you for your active involvement in voicemails, because, I really love the content that you bring. He's asking an interesting question. I think part of the problem, the honest answer is, I don't think they can do it alone. I think it's up to us, and when I say us, I don't mean us as podcasters, I mean the whole fan community. When there's other characters we're reading, like, let's use an Animal Man as an example, or Captain Atom, or The Movement. These are books that, I've lost that I love. Animal Man we lost because Lemire switched over to the new Justice League book, and I think that had something to do with that decision, because Animal Man's on that team and Lemire's going to be writing it. But for I'll use The Movement and Captain Atom, are 2 books that I greatly loved that were really, really good. Mr. Terrific, another title. Blue Beetle. I think, with those characters, in order for them to succeed, there needs to be fans that are out there promoting those titles. With Batman, what they're doing isn't really abnormal. That's most comic companies do what they're doing. They canceled one of the Batman titles. Batman The Dark Knight's gone. We have 3 regular monthly Batman books now, and then we have Eternal, which, admittedly, with what he's saying, that means 3 extra issues on that book. That's a finite series, though. I don't think it's quite a year, is it, Jim? I don't remember that one being listed as a 52-issue title.
See, I always just assumed it was a 52 issue, but to be honest, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know the details on that one, but. Do they put too much onto certain specific core characters? What do you think?
See, I'm kind of torn on this one.
Okay.
Because on one hand, I say, if the book is selling, then they're okay. If people are willing to buy the book, then okay, they're showing that yes, they don't have too many titles. But on the other hand, I look at stuff like with what he brought up, how he's picking up this title, so now he has to drop a couple other titles. If this, now I'm the opening issue of Batman Eternal, I absolutely gushed about it. I loved it, so I was excited to get it. I'm like, yeah, this is cool. But if I was on a limited budget and I had to pick between, that would be a tough call, because that's right there, 4 issues. That's 4 different titles. Well, 3 other titles I would have to drop to make, financial room for that title, because it is the weekly series. So that would be a difficult decision. I can understand people saying, hey, we got enough Bat titles. Let's hold off on the Bat titles so I can take my money and put it somewhere else. And it could be actually a way to either like some of the other characters like Batwing, Batgirl, the Dick Grayson series, or even a Red Robin series, or some other, Bat family associated if you drop another one Bat title, or pull people to give Green Arrow a try, or Wonder Woman a try, or, that type of, you can look at and say, yes, these 2 titles, like Green Arrow, Batman, technically they're not associated, but if someone is a Bat fan and they have some freed up money, they may look at Green Arrow. They may look at some other title and give that title a try instead of just, because they've got the money, they're going to spend it. Let's see, maybe we can pull them somewhere else. I don't know. It's one of those things where I don't know have enough information. I don't know I don't want to say the exact science, because it's not a science, but it is kind of it's the flow, the give and take. It's the laws of supply and demand. And there's just the various other business side type of equations that I'm sure they look into when they're picking titles and they're going with this idea and they're making these decisions.
Eternal's going to be 60 issues, so it's over a year. So it's a year-long weekly series plus.
Plus,
Yeah.
wow.
But here's the thing. You look at the creative teams that are involved with Eternal. That has a lot of weight for me, and it's Batman. And there's a point to that. Here's the thing, though. On the flip side of that, I'm loving as much. Let's take it out of the Bat family. Earth 2. Brilliant series that's out right now. I adore that series. The Justice League Dark line, the Supernatural line. Loving those characters. So they are giving characters like that a shot. Aquaman is a character. They aren't putting. They did a team book now, Aquaman and the Others, spinning out of a Jeff Johns creation. But I think expanding that is something new that they haven't really done before, and I think that's a character who Aquaman's had a roller coaster history, and I'm glad to see that character's getting pushed to the forefront as having a little bit more depth to him. I don't know. There's certain characters that I think that they, could spotlight more. Sure. We talked about some of them, but they're doing a lot of characters that are outside of just the big three. It's interesting though because he's got a certain point as far as does a weekly title take that away from you. That's the problem. I like the weekly delivery. I look at Eternal differently than I do monthly books. I look at that as a finite miniseries. The fact that it's weekly, he's right though. I see his side of it too. This is why I'm being a little wishy-washy with this, because there's me as a comic fan that's going, okay, I will make room for a 60-issue, week-long, limited Batman miniseries called Eternal. I love miniseries. I like the finite story. I like that they're trying something unique and different. And I feel that when Eternal's done, this is going to be a unique experience because of the delivery method. So that's what has me excited. I think there's obviously for the company a financial decision that helps drive that, with red lighting, with green lighting this, I should say, and getting this series out there. I think it's because of the fact that, wow, this will, help, it will help sales. I get that point and I agree with them on that. But I also think it's going to be a great storytelling experience because of the way it's delivered and the fact that it will tie into the Batman book and things like that. For me, that's really cool. But there's a financial commitment to that. He's right. It's an interesting point. I think to answer his other question, though, and I think it is a much more important question, what do we do to help out books? Let's talk about Green Arrow. Green Arrow's a title. I really love Green Arrow. His talking about Green Arrow. We're going to talk about it next week. We planned on it this week, but we got onto a Batman discussion, and it just felt better than tacking on Green Arrow and Wonder Woman to start with them next week and really spotlight them. Green Arrow's one of those titles. Wonder Woman's one of those titles that really they need word of mouth. They need people to start talking about how great they are. I think next week we'll better be able to speak to this. It's actually his comments right now really lead to a lot of our discussion on next week's episode, and I'm excited to talk about that because of it. Can you think of any other way to get words out? I think that a lot of that relies on us as the fans. Can you think of another way? The company could do it?
Yeah, the main way I think that we speak volumes with our money. One, if you believe in the book, you support the book. And one of the things I think out there that it's something we've done with a lot of, if you're not liking something, fine, but say something you're liking. Talk about what you're enjoying. And it's because everybody out there, they've got something on their pull list that they're like, it's not doing it for me anymore. Well, if you sit there and you start speaking about Green Arrow, you start speaking about Wonder Woman, you start talking about what books you think are just absolutely wonderful, somebody out there who's not reading it may say, hey, well, this guy is sitting there gushing about it. Let me give it a read through. Let me pick up an issue. Let me see what happens. And it's that I think is, especially now with the multimedia, with the internet, with groups and chat rooms and whatnot, there's so many ways for us as fans to let other fans know what's great. what we're enjoying, and it's we have the power.
Here's the thing. There's no comic right now that's selling enough that it can handle the amount of bashing that comics get right now.
Right.
The top sales number right now, your top selling books, it's even your Batman. Let's go to Batman. Let's use, flagship character. Batman is an easy sell, right? X-Men, he used them too. Let's throw them out there as an easy sell. Spider-Man, those type of books. Spider-Man, they went to I know Spider-Man, what ended up happening was they ended up canceling a lot of the Spider-Man titles and then just took the main title and started releasing it double shipping, as a way to connect the story that was being told instead of, fishing you between the different titles. And I quite like that. But I think what those characters, even what they're selling right now, is not representative of what they should be. And I think cost is a major problem with trying new characters. He's touching on it here. I think word of mouth is really needed. I think getting people to try comics that maybe haven't before and getting them to try unique titles. If a guy goes, I'm just not a Batman guy. Well, that doesn't mean that they can't read comics. The Supernatural line, I think, appeals to a wider audience of people that maybe would never touch a superhero book before. And that's just talking DC. You get into indies and Image and Marvel and Dark Horse and Boom and all of the amazing independent publishers out there, IDW, Dynamite, Valiant. You keep going on all those. There's such a wide variety of what's being offered in comics out there. There really is something for everybody. But it really is word of mouth. And I would extend a lot of what he's saying about smaller characters to comics that are outside of the big two. They really need word of mouth for people to, start trying them. We are, honestly, we have a lot more power as fans than we realize. And if we love this medium and we want more variety and we want them to keep existing, if you're a Batman fan and you're picking up a whole bunch of Batman titles, but you're also picking up, Swamp Thing. Let's just throw one title out there, Swamp Thing. Let people know why Swamp Thing's great and really spend a lot of time devoted to that, and point people in that direction. Post that on Facebook, post that on a blog somewhere, go to a forum where you think people might be into that kind of thing and just throw, hey, if you guys aren't reading this is a terrific book and here's why. And really explain what the connection is to the character for you and what kind of storytelling people can get in there. And if one person from there goes and tries that book, you've done something to help that title. That's what's needed right now. And I don't know that the comics aren't selling enough that I am the guiltiest person of saying they need to advertise on TV. But that's really expensive. And if you look at the sales numbers for comics, I don't know that the budget's there. Unless you do a general ad, maybe. But you've really got to do a general ad that somehow draws people into it. I don't know what it is. I don't know that I have the answer. It's the cost versus Mike Thomas posted on our Raging Bullets group. And he's someone who pops in every so often. He had a talk with us, remember, about licensing all those years ago and about how you can't advertise on kids' shows and things, and I get that. He posted something about the fact that, how much commercials cost versus the payoff. And there's a point to that. I get what he's saying there. Because you would really want continuous commercials to keep drawing in new fans. I'm not just talking about kids shows. I'm talking about on adult programming that we think would draw them in. And I don't know there'd be enough payoff to it. So I don't know what the answer is other than we can make it underground. We can make it cool. People get into retro every so often. And we can make comics that retro thing, that underground thing, pull that cool, amazing title and really rant and rave about it with some depth. That matches you and your personality. Brandon's a great example of a guy, when he calls in, he's always got a unique rant. And it's a rant that I want to respond to. And he makes me think, he challenges me, and I think we've got a listening audience that does that. Who's a silent, there's a lot of silent majority in our show that just kind of content to listen and all that stuff. Don't respond to our show. Go on a website and post something really cool about a comic you're enjoying. That's how you get the word out. We are a powerful force. We really are. I mean, it sounds corny and cheesy, but we are. I mean, can you think of anything else? I don't know what.
Yeah, the strength is, it's, I'm trying not to be too corny, but the strength, it's the strength of our voice, and it's, we have to actually speak out, and we have to say, this is who we are, this is what we like.
This is really turning into an 80s montage. I mean, like, there should be like a song. We got the fight. We got the power.
I've got the power. Okay, so, that and He-Man, I have the power.
I wasn't going there. I was going more Karate Kid training montage, like we're getting into that kind of thing. But there's a truth to that.
And it's, I think this is, and we, a lot of times we'll talk about just how, out there, it's, you get it, when we get such passionate discussions going a lot of times, and, a lot, when I'll read some of these discussions, it's, one side arguing something stinks, another side arguing, oh no, it doesn't. You get that fight going back and forth, but, we need to have that passion, that equal passion of what we love as composed to what we hate. And I think that's the key, that any title, if you have that passion about that title, you got to let people know. And once you say, hey, I love something, somebody's going to come back to you. And somebody's going to come back and know that stinks. And you're going to get those negative people. And you're going to get those people who are going to want to just cut you down, whether even they've read the title or not. They're still just going to want to, say stuff. And that's where it leads to the silence, because it's easier to say, forget it. I'm not about to mess with these idiots who've never obviously read this title, but they're just going to start, being snarky and knock me down. And that's,
you know what, though?
That's the hard part to face. That's the hard part to get the initial speaking.
But that's where, set up your own blog. Do something where, there's lots of different opportunities. Podcast. People can get the word out that way. That's what we do. Blogs are an easy way, though. And it doesn't have to be a regularly, do a once-a-month blog on a title of yours that you're like, hey, I want to give this some notice. So I'm going to make a fan page. And have fun with it. You know what I mean? Take that book that you really dig, and just do a fan page. Just get it out there and just say, hey, here's a book that I really like, and here's why you should be reading it. And update it as often as you want, but you've put it out there. And if one or two people read the book because of that, you've done something cool for comics, And there's free ways to do that. I'm not telling people to expend money doing this kind of thing. There's so many free ways to get the word out about something you like. Or like Brandon did, call in podcasts. He called in ours. He's making his voice heard about certain books and certain things that he digs. In his opinion, that he's now made a mark. People on our show have heard that now. And people, call into our show, call into other shows, and let your voice be heard. How many people do you hit on this podcast by calling in? And I mean a lot. It's complimentary to the people that call into our show by taking the time to just say, hey, you know what? I got this book that I'm really digging. Whether it's a Batman book or Superman book. And I know it's, talking about those characters, sometimes, they go, well, I'm Batman's getting enough readership. No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's really not. None of these books are getting the right amount of readership. Call in about those titles and get the word out. Any book that you're digging, I think that helps. So it's every little bit helps. Every little bit chunking away. I do think a lot of it's left up to us, though. It really is. It's not the best answer. I wish there was a limited amount of budget to get out there, because there's an untapped audience to this stuff. There really is. Cost, I do think, is prohibitive, though. When you look at, if you have a pull list for comics, we consider that budget really important to us because we love reading these books. We're already invested. I think for a new person coming into comics, it's really expensive to get into comics. It just is. As far as with the competition of other, devices with apps, video games, all the other things that are out there, I think you can get somebody hooked very quickly. I think by doing one title, just give somebody one title and just say, hey, dude, you want to start reading this. And not try to get somebody into a pull list at first. Get them into one book.
Yeah.
That they might enjoy. And that's a cost-effective way to get in. And maybe do one of those titles that's dropped after like 30 days or 60 days or whatever it is now. Where it drops down $1. So get them on a $2 entry point. Or the free ones. A lot of comic companies have out there now, not just DC, free issues of ongoing titles that you can read as a starting point. And that's really a great way to get somebody involved in comics, particular characters as well. I would give them something that's ongoing, though.
Yeah.
You know what I was doing the other day? When I moved to a hosting server for our website, what happened was I had individual hosting for 3 different websites, and it's just the way that I set it up over the years. I went to a deluxe that would host all the websites, and the first one I did was my professional one for work, and then I have one for my father and the Raging Bullets one. I wanted to make sure they were all moved, and I wanted to do it carefully so that way there would be a minimum amount of downtime for any website. When I was on the phone, the person was helping me through it. They had to make some changes on their end. They noticed that the Raging Bullet site was a podcast website, and the person said, I was trying to get into comics, haven't ever been a comic reader, but I really enjoy the show Arrow. So, needless to say, what am I pointing the person to? Arrow.
Yeah.
Green Arrow, I should say. And I pointed the person to Green Arrow, and I particularly referenced the Lemire run. And the reason why is I think the Lemire run, for a person who's currently watching the show, is a really good starting point. Because you got Diggle in there, and you've got it's I think thematically really closely tied to the show, while at the same time you're getting fresh and original stories. But they were also looking for like a classic trade about Green Arrow, and I mentioned Longbow Hunters. Go grab something like that. So just as a starting point, I think those conversations and things are way. Will this person read that? I don't know. I'm hoping, but I tried to give a really good answer without doing an episode of our show. And I think I succeeded. I don't know. We'll see. I wish I could see if they bought it or not.
I know. You want to call them up, say, hey, remember I talked to you earlier?
Mm-hmm. Did you actually buy that? Yeah. I don't know. Good stuff. It's really a good question.
Oh, no, you don't!
I want to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. We want to hear your thoughts on comics, pop culture, anything relating to our show that you would like to shout out. Please call in because your thoughts are really important to us. I also want to shout out our show website, RagingBullets.com, where you'll find updates on what's going on with the show. I try to post content lineup when Jim and I have decided on it, so it's a great way to get news on what's happening. I have that linked to our Twitter feed. I also have it linked to our Facebook page. This is separated from our Facebook group. We have a Facebook group that we're sharing with DC Infinite. DC Infinite is your comics news source for DC Comics, and it's a wonderful group. It's a wonderful community. We have a lot of podcasters and bloggers who post updates on things that are going on with their websites. There's a lot of talk that's not just DC, it's also pop culture related, but it's a great way to just share in the commentary and be a part of just a great, safe, fun community of people just celebrating our love for comics. So I want to shout out that group. We are also on Google+. We have a Google+ page. Please feel free to add us on our personal pages as well. I tend to post more from my personal account. The Raging Bullets account tends to be a utility account for the show. So if you want to interact with me directly, please feel free to add me on my personal page. I love interacting with all of you, so it's just a great part of the social network nowadays, being able to collaborate and talk with each other. So just want to thank everyone for that. Remind everyone about our sponsors, DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at InStockTrades.com, I mentioned this at the beginning of the episode. I was a big fan of this series. It's a Vertigo series, and it's called Day Tripper, and there's a deluxe edition hardcover out. What are the most important days of your life? Fabio Moon and Gabriel Ba answer that question in this new deluxe edition hardcover of the hit 10-issue miniseries that won praise from comic veterans such as Terry Moore, Craig Thompson, and Jeff Smith. Day Tripper is a story that follows the life of an aspiring writer and peers in at a completely different moment of his life in each one of the chapters. Moon and Ba tell a beautifully lyrical tale chronicling Domingo's entire existence, from his loves to his deaths and all the possibilities in between. It's a 272-page graphic novel. This, to me, a lot of the Vertigo stories really just read well in collected versions. So if you haven't picked this up, it's $34.99 regularly. At 50% off, you're getting that at only $17.49. It's gorgeous artwork and a terrific story. If you miss this one, or even if you caught it and you want to revisit it in a collected edition, this is the way I think that this book needs to be experienced. It's one that I'm going to pick up. I tend to try to grab things for ads that are things that I'm really interested in, just to kind of spotlight some cool product that you might have missed. And it's just a great story and one that I recommend. And once again, as I mentioned in the beginning, that Dave Gibbons Watchmen Artifact Edition hardcover. What the thing is to me, if you're going to publish a new hardcover, a new collection about Watchmen, give us some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, the stuff that we all want to know. And having this approved by Dave Gibbons really has it on the spotlight for me. It's $93.75, and it's a pre-order item that you can get from dcbservice.com. So I want to remind everyone that dcbservice.com is your discount comic book pre-order source. InStockTrades.com is your collected edition and hardcover source. I want to thank both of those websites for continuing to sponsor our podcast. Our next episode, we know for sure we're going to be doing Wonder Woman and Green Arrow. Jim and I are going to be talking over this week and adding other content onto there. So we will see you then.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and loss and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman. Eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan. And what you do to me. Are closing in, be they Thanin Guard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see.